everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Thank you all for the love and support you've shown me and the channel.
HOTD as a zombie I devour ghouls and parasites. Chapter 50 to 75. Chapter 50 10-50 words. I feel a penetrating gaze observing me fixedly from the shadows. Of course, it's not the normal gaze a human can emit. It's an intense and dangerous gaze. After a few seconds, the owner of that gaze jumps from atop the 5th floor of the only nearby tall building. She falls in free fall before landing softly a few meters away from me. Her feet make no sound touching the ground despite wearing heeled boots. The light of the full moon shines on her face, revealing her beautiful features. I see that in her right hand she holds an elongated pole. Or would it be more correct to call it a spear due to how elaborate it is? With engravings along the shaft, and a metal tip that looks quite intimidating. I remember Ray mentioned a few days ago that she wielded spears. And that her mother was the one who taught her. Kiriko has a neutral expression on her beautiful face, as she begins to speak in a calm voice. You're quite perceptive. I'm sure I erased my presence. She walks toward me, stopping just 1 meter away. From this close position, I see how her red eyes glow crimson. I have a question for you, Mrs., and I hope you won't mind answering it. Why do you manipulate your own family's minds? I don't try to hide the disgust in my voice. As far as I know, there are no ghouls with powers capable of manipulating the minds of other beings. That must be a vampire's power, right? Which means you're one of them. She responds in a flat tone. You've guessed correctly that I'm a vampire. But the other part? Would I go so far as to call it manipulation? Why not consider calling it a form of protection? Humans aren't made to know some truths. It's easier and safer for them to live in ignorance. One is your daughter. And the other is your husband. Both wanted to take me home because they're worried about my well-being. And you modify those wills. She slowly closes her eyes and sighs. When she opens them again, a cold flash crosses her red pupils. The next moment I see the sharp tip of her spear approaching my face at surprising speed. So she'll attack. I think as I react instantly. Well, since it turned out this way. At the same time I raise my right hand, my fingers transform into sharp blades. I put them directly in front of the spear tip, intercepting it. Where the spear tip impacts against my knife fingers, bright sparks scatter. As a consequence of the tremendous force of the being attacking me, my entire body is violently thrown through the air backward. I roll several uncontrolled turns in the air. And in that moment while spinning I see I'm going to crash into a metal light post. If that happens, the electricity will be cut in many places in the area. It mustn't happen. It'll attract the attention of curious people. I want to have a quiet and private moment with Mrs. When I'm almost about to impact the light post, I flip my body in such a way that my foot makes contact first with the metal. I bend my knees, absorbing the impact, and cushion my weight so as not to damage or break the post. This would have been impossible before. My strength was growing non-stop, and I didn't have complete control over it. But as I've fed on supernatural beings, my control over my strength and abilities has also increased significantly. I look forward and fix my eyes on Mrs. As I get down to the ground from the light post, I propel myself, launching directly toward her. I see how Mrs. Kiriko puts on a mocking expression. From the frequencies she emits, I know the reason for her mockery and confidence. After all, I'm unprotected, launching myself head-on this way. And since I'm currently in the air without my feet touching the ground, I have no methods to dodge. Knowing I can do nothing to protect myself or dodge, the vampire lady pushes her spear forward with all her strength, aiming at my head. When the sharp tip is barely a centimeter from piercing my face, I laugh out loud. A sound occurs like when the surface of water is violently struck by a hand. And at the same time behind my back appear dark and viscous tentacles covered with small hard scales. Kiriko's eyes widen. I manipulate one of my tentacles to appear before me. The tentacle quickly wraps around the spear along with Mrs. Kiriko's delicate hand, and pulls it forcefully to one side. The spear along with the coiled tentacle pass beneath my chest, avoiding the strike. Then I manipulate the remaining tentacles and slam them against the hard ground. That makes my body propel over Mrs. Kiriko in an arc. She still holds her spear because of the tentacle squeezing it. Being pulled so abruptly, she loses her balance. But even in that unfavorable situation, she maintains a flat expression without panic. Observing all of that while flying over her, I twist my body in the air. While my tentacle releases Mrs. Kiriko's hand and spear, I use all my remaining tentacles simultaneously. I slam them all together against her from above. A huge and thunderous explosion is heard. Gray smoke clouds rise from the struck ground and cover the place. A silhouette is violently thrown, sweeping through the smoke curtain with her body. Kiriko is thrown over the entire road, traveling an impressive distance. Only dark blurs can be seen left behind by her speed. Her body bounces several times against the pavement before stopping. I land on the ground and look at my tentacles moving behind me. They're quite useful. It's surprisingly easy to use the Kagun. I don't know if this happens to all ghouls who recently get their Kagun, or if for them it'll be difficult to use, and they have to train it arduously. Kiriko disappears from the ground and suddenly appears in front of me in a dark blur. Chapter 51. Chapter 51. Kiriko disappears from the ground and suddenly appears in front of me in a dark blur. The force I used was everything I had. I'm sure it would have pulverized a ghoul. No, in fact, I felt in that moment that Mrs. Kiriko's head disappeared. Absurd regeneration, huh? I prepare to face what would probably be the toughest battle so far, but she doesn't attack me this time. She stops a few meters away and plants the tip of her spear in the ground. I underestimated you for being just a child. She shakes the dust off her clothes. But you're quite strong for your age. And you already know how to perfectly use your Kagun. Even that unknown claw on your fingers. Her glowing red eyes stop emitting light and return to being normal eyes, though red in color. You won't attack me anymore. At my question, she shakes her head. I'm more curious now about your true origin. I'm not sure what you are. On one hand, I smell ghoul in you, that explains you having a Kagun. On the other hand, you smell different from a ghoul, and I can assume it has to do with your claws. At the same time, the core of your being smells strange. Or is it that it doesn't smell like anything specific? Maybe you're also an experiment. Either way, your scent is pleasant and tempting to supernatural beings like me. Is that so? I feel interest in her words. So far, she's the one who describes my scent the most. The core of my being, huh? Is that what I call being a zombie? Or maybe it's different. She sighs. I don't know how you've managed to keep living until now without being discovered and hunted. Because I've been carefully hiding since I was a child. She shakes her head. That's not enough. They would have found you long ago. Whether it's the organizations that hunt monsters, or the hungry monsters themselves attracted by your scent. I furrow my brows and think if that's true. I thought they didn't find me because I hid well. But considering the heightened senses of ghouls and vampires, they would have located me long before I turned 6. That means my situation is different from what I thought at first. I stop thinking about that for now and make my Kagun retract. The tentacles disappear into my back with a wet sound. At the same time, my fingers also return to normal. Kiriko's stable frequencies, I know she no longer has any intention of attacking me. Is that why you followed me then? Just to satisfy your curiosity about what I am? It may be partially so. She admits and is honest about it. But mainly I came to make sure you're not a threat to my family. I've carefully built that life over the years, and I won't allow anything or anyone to endanger their lives. Seeing my carefree action, the corners of Mrs. Kiriko's lips rise. Don't you trust me? But if it's because of the mental manipulation I did through my vampiric powers, then you have no moral right to judge me. Because you also hide what you are, right? I don't play with the minds of people I care about. I respond in a cold voice. Don't you? Isn't pretending to be normal when you're not, and hiding what you are also a form of emotional manipulation? You may be right about that. In any case, I really don't like that my friend Ray was the target of a spell that can turn her into a puppet without free will. This time I can let it pass since the other party is her own mother. And maybe it's true that she wanted to follow me and verify whether or not I'm a threat to Ray. But if it were someone else who wanted to use that kind of mental spell on Ray or anyone else I care about, I wouldn't hesitate a second to permanently end them. Kiriko smiles and says, "You've passed my test. Can you really trust me? The moment you got angry when I mentally manipulated Ray. That showed me you care about her. And that's enough for me." She pauses before continuing. "That's why I propose an agreement between creatures living among humans." I tilt my head and ask her what kind of agreement she means. At first I intended to reveal your existence to the organization I work for. But thinking carefully, that would make my dear daughter sad. And if she found out it was my fault, she might hate me forever. She explains in a softer voice. "So I'll keep your secret about what you are. And you'll keep mine about being a vampire. And I ask that if possible you take care of my daughter when I can't be present." She extends her delicate hand toward me, waiting. "What do you say about this agreement?" I look at her extended hand for a moment before responding. "I would protect her even if you didn't tell me to. She's my friend." I take her hand. Then I look into her red eyes. "But I'm curious. What is this organization you work for?" She answers my curious question, and the answer makes me startled. Helsing Agency. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon. com/Olwen Moriarty. Chapter 52, Chapter 52 16 words Helsing, huh? I know that name a bit since I've seen that anime in my past life. It's an organization where there's that terrifying existence, right? A vampire who's basically a god with ridiculously OP powers. Just to be sure, I decide to ask Mrs. Kiriko a curious question. What kind of organization is Helsing Agency? Instead of answering me immediately, she points with her hand toward a nearby park that's empty and illuminated by some streetlights. Before we continue talking, why don't we take a short break there? It'll be more comfortable than standing here in the middle of the street. I look at her curiously as she approaches and grabs me by the collar of my clothes, lifting me easily. "What are you doing?" I ask, surprised as my feet dangle in the air. She shows a smile that reveals her two fangs. "She's quite beautiful. It's because you hit me in the face before during our little fight. You even split my entire head open with your tentacles. You should be happy I'm not taking revenge for that in a more painful way." Then the entire panorama around me becomes a blur. Whoosh! In less than a second we're in the park. A vampire's speed is evidently much faster than a ghoul's. In fact, it even far surpasses mine. A strange idea crosses my mind. I wonder what will happen if I bite Mrs. Kiriko and drink her vampire blood. Well, she'd surely get extremely angry and kill me. So I'd better set that curiosity aside for now. She releases me and says in a disappointed tone, "You don't seem even a bit dizzy from the speed." She gestures toward the wooden bench. "Sit down." We both sit on the bench. This park is empty at this hour of New Year's morning. Getting back to the main topic. Kiriko says in a more serious voice. Helsing Agency is an organization that remains secret from the general public for now. But it will probably be revealed to the world soon due to the increase in supernatural cases. Anyway, it's fundamentally a military organization that hunts dangerous vampires. Helsing. An organization that hunts vampires. So it's safe to conclude this is that organization from the anime I watched. Kiriko nods and in a colder voice continues. In fact, they don't just hunt vampires. They also eliminate any supernatural being that threatens Britain's security. Not all supernatural beings, of course, since some work directly for them as employees. Like myself. Hearing that, I show a smile while looking at her. So am I also considered a supernatural threat, Mrs. She fixes her red eyes on mine without blinking. Currently you're just a powerful child who protects my daughter. That's why I'm making this deal with you, and not reporting your existence to Helsing. But that could change if you become a real problem or threat. I shrug casually. This is reality. I mustn't have a naive mind or the stupid idea that this world is a fun anime. But still, in some specific cases it can help me dimension things a bit, and better understand the power scale. For example, from what I remember of that anime, Helsing has massive resources, extensive knowledge about the supernatural, and not to mention the military power they have completely surpasses the CCG, and all ghouls combined. They're a dangerous enemy I definitely want to avoid facing. Then a question arises. If Helsing deals with supernatural beings to ensure Britain's security, why are you here in Japan so far from your base? Kiriko leans back comfortably against the bench's backrest while looking at the sky. I am in Japan on an observation mission, if you can call it that. I've been tasked with monitoring the current situation to see if there are any vampires operating here, and also investigating recent strange incidents Helsing Agency has noticed. She pauses before continuing. It's about those parasitic worms that infect living beings. Since I'm originally from Japan, and have a family established here, they also allowed me to take a bit of an extended vacation. So this arrangement isn't bad at all. I swing my legs on the bench since they don't reach the ground. I put both arms comfortably behind my head, and turn my face toward Mrs. Is Helsing also already aware of their existence? By asking that, you also know about them, huh? That's a surprise. Please stop looking at me like that. Some of the agents have reported seeing green glowing spores falling from the sky. Then they investigated what those spores were and found out about the parasitic worms. Immediately the entire agency went on maximum alert. Do they know if this is happening worldwide or only in some countries? A dark cloud settles on Mrs. Kiriko's face. It's a global-level invasion. They're falling on all continents. They seem to come from outer space. Who knows what else could be out there? She pauses while looking at me. In fact, I notice her eyes are directed at my hand behind my head. By the way, your hands with those blades remind me of the parasites' blades we've documented. Some interesting things have happened. I respond that way without giving details. Kiriko doesn't press for more information either. She seems to respect my privacy in that regard. Ah, right. Why doesn't Helsing intervene here if there are ghouls and parasites threatening the population? Kiriko responds in a voice that sounds almost bored. From the frequencies she emits, I feel that for her the answer is quite obvious. Japan is CCG territory by international agreements established many years ago. Helsing only intervenes militarily in cases of confirmed vampires or supernatural threats coming from abroad into Japanese territory. Threats coming from abroad? Could she be referring to Millennium? It's an organization of artificial vampires that was shown in the anime. At that moment I hear footsteps approaching from the park entrance. They're people, and when I focus my sight I see there's several drunks staggering. Even from this distance I can see how they look at Mrs. Kiriko lecherously. Their eyes scan her body from top to bottom. Damn them. She's my friend's mother. Ugh, it makes me want to slap them to death. Kiriko shows an expression of contempt on her beautiful face and shortly after gets up from the bench. We'll continue this chat another day when we have more privacy, she says in a cold voice. I get up too, but before I can leave I ask her one last question. Why are you being so cooperative with me and telling me all this information? Her red eyes glow softly. Because I sense that sooner or later you'll cross paths with Helsing in some inevitable way. And when that day comes, it's better that you're prepared for what you'll face. She turns her back to me and begins walking toward the park exit. The drunks shout rudely for her to stop because they want to have fun with her. She ignores them as if they were annoying insects. Ah, and one more important thing. She says without turning to look at me. If you ever need help or information, you can look for me. Your situation is quite special and even I'm curious. So if you want to know what you are, I can also help you investigate and understand your origin. When the drunks stagger up to where she is, she disappears. The drunk men fall on their butts to the ground. Their faces turn pale as they scream terrified. It's a ghost. A damn ghost. They'll probably think tomorrow that it was hallucinations caused by alcohol, right? One of them dropped a beer bottle that rolls until it stops near my feet. I see it's still unopened. I grab it curiously and open it with my fingers. I bring it to my mouth and take a long drink. I know it's illegal for children to drink alcohol. But honestly, I don't care about that at all. It tastes pretty bad. One of the drunks gets up staggering and yells at me. Hey, brat. That bottle is mine. I look at him as I walk toward him. Then I pour all the remaining contents on top of his head. What the hell? At the same time he starts his complaint, I also disappear from the place using my explosive strength. I laugh out loud while jumping between rooftops. Help me understand myself to know my true origin, huh? I think about Mrs. Kiriko's words as I run through the city. But is trusting Mrs. Kiriko who belongs to Helsing a risk or an advantage? Leaving that aside for now, in the first place it's likely that even she won't know what I am even if she searches for information. At some point I'll know anyway on my own. So there's no need to think too much about it. But now I have many more serious concerns knowing for certain that the world of Helsing is mixed into this reality. If I were to face them someday, without a doubt I'll be exterminated. Especially with that secret living weapon they have. A vampire called Alucard. I firmly decide one thing in my mind. I must become much, much stronger. Exponentially stronger. To protect myself and all my friends I care about, I'll devour everything in my path. Ghouls, parasites, vampires, whatever. They'll all be my food. They'll all contribute to my evolution. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon. com/Olwen Moriarty Chapter 53. Chapter 53 1238 words. Days pass quickly, and in 1 week it will be time for Saya and Ray to finally return to school after winter break. When they move up to the next grade level, which will be in approximately a few months, it will also be the time when Mrs. Yuriko will officially enroll me in the same school that the two of them attend. However, I'm not too worried about that now. I have too many more important things to take care of. Since New Year's I've been constantly going out at night to hunt. I've killed some parasites scattered around the city, and in fact before they died I devoured them alive just as I planned. But it seems that wasn't a very good decision after all. It's true they gave me a huge amount of additional strength. At the same time it made me grow several more centimeters and gain considerably more weight in muscle and body mass. However, the damn murmurs returned. And this time very strong. It's so intense I think they'll drive me crazy. By consuming the parasites alive, my ability to sense emotional frequencies increased exponentially. Now I can say without being wrong what kind of emotions a person has. I can sense parasites from incredibly long distances. And I discovered something new. I'm able to slightly influence the emotional frequencies of other people, making them follow what I want them to do. It's like a limited form of mind control that Mrs. Kiriko has. But at the same time, when I hear those incomprehensible murmurs in my head, I start to see things that shouldn't be seen. Elongated and distorted silhouettes with huge and wide smiles full of sharp teeth. Sometimes while I'm with Saya or Ray talking, I suddenly see a human figure slowly shuffling toward me. Its head rotates 180 degrees backward, and then dislocates grotesquely, leaving its chin pointing upward and its long hair hanging down. It seems I'm seeing a creature taken from a paranormal horror movie. But since ghouls, parasites and vampires exist in this world, honestly, I don't care much about seeing strange things. Except for one very specific detail that disturbs me. That distorted figure looks too much like me. It has my height, my build and my facial features. Would it be like seeing one's own version of oneself as a monstrous reflection? That's how I feel. On this night I leave the Takagi mansion and arrive at a private place. Well, it's the area where in the past I lived in that abandoned building. I know there's no one here at night, so it's the perfect place to do what I want to experiment with. I decide to seriously experiment with my ghoul vision. It's always seemed annoying and inefficient to me that I must obligatorily enter my ghoul mode to use that special vision. It's my best tool for detecting supernatural threats from afar. But because my sclera turns black and my iris crimson when I transform, it means it's very showy and eye-catching. So I definitely can't use it when there are normal people around. And since my Kagun finally fully awakened, now not only do my eyes transform when I enter ghoul mode. My dark tentacles also appear coming out of my back. Which eliminates any possibility of using my ghoul vision discreetly in front of my friends, or where there are other people watching. So I've been thinking for a long time about training this aspect. But almost every night I've gone out to hunt monsters. Sometimes I take Tuka with me, although very few times do we actually find wild ghouls in this residential area. We find many more scattered parasites. I stand in the middle of two abandoned buildings. Instead of activating ghoul mode, I focus only on my eyes. I try to force only that partial transformation. The next moment, my eyes throb with pain. I feel something hot slowly sliding down my cheeks. At first I think confused that it's normal tears. But when I touch my cheeks my fingers are stained red. It's thick blood coming out from the corners of my eyes. I feel like my eyes will explode from the inside because the pressure is unbearable. A few seconds later my entire body involuntarily enters ghoul mode. The tentacles emerge from my back. I stop training for that day feeling frustrated. The next night I come back to the same abandoned place to train. Another night and another night more. After several torturous days of training until my eyes bleed each night, I finally manage to maintain the partial transformation for several seconds without my eye bleeding, and without transforming the rest of my body involuntarily. It's slow progress, but I must say it's also satisfying. Then one day I managed to activate only the special vision where the world turns black and white. It was only for approximately 2 or 3 seconds before it deactivated again. But those 2 seconds of that ability active are more than enough to scan my surroundings without drawing so much attention from normal people. With this achieved, the following days are intense days of physical and mental training. At night I visit Tuka, and she takes me to abandoned areas with no nearby houses. There we train together controlling our Kagun. When I'm alone I try to understand the incomprehensible murmurs that constantly sound in my head, trying to distinguish words or patterns. Days pass like this. And not just days but entire weeks. During that time Rei and Saya had also already returned to their respective schools, resuming their normal routines. I must find that ghoul. I tell myself as I jump between rooftops. The ghoul I saw on the news some time ago. I still remember that ghoul who hunts in the shopping district. Rei generally passes through that area walking to her school every morning. It would be bad if she became this monster's target. That's why when she leaves her house early in the morning to go to school, I follow her secretly. I jump and run agilely through dark alleys while dodging where I know there are security cameras so as not to be detected by any surveillance system. I'm not as worried in the afternoon when she returns, since her father Tadashi picks her up in his car and brings her back. Speaking of Tadashi and Rei, Mrs. Kiriko has already returned abroad, which is to be expected knowing she works for Helsing. As for Saya, Mrs. Yuriko herself clears up a bit of her tight schedule to personally take her daughter and bring her back each day. So my main concern is during the mornings when Rei is walking alone to school. During the following days I find absolutely nothing. Which is normal considering ghouls don't hunt every day. A single human is enough food to sustain them for several days. If they hunted too frequently, it would be too easy for CCG investigators to track them down and eliminate them. Then on this day, while using my ghoul vision without my eyes transforming, or my cocoon coming out of my back, I manage to see my target. My face turns cold. He's standing near Ray, scolding her. He's already marked Ray as his next prey. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon. com/Olwen Moriarty Chapter 54. Chapter 54 1879 words. Ray is currently walking animatedly through the crowded streets toward her school. On her small and cute face blooms a smile so radiant it could even be comparable to the sun illuminating the morning. It won't be long until Arida also attends school. She murmurs happily to herself while taking little hops. Then with him nearby, classes won't be so boring anymore. We'll even be able to spend the whole day together. And when Arida finally becomes my boyfriend. Thinking about those romantic things, her cheeks begin to blush intensely until completely painting the tips of her ears red. She hugs her backpack against her chest as she continues walking. Now that he's Saya's adoptive Onii-san, she can't be his girlfriend, right? So he'll be just for me. She feels clever thinking that. In fact, for a long time she's known well Saya also has romantic feelings for Arida. But Saya is too tsundere to show them openly. So now that Arida suddenly became her adoptive brother, or is about to become one, Saya must be in crisis. Saya doesn't know whether she should reject him being her Onii-san in order to be his girlfriend later, or accept him being her Onii-san at the cost of losing the opportunity to have him as a boyfriend. If she chooses the first, she feels it's too cruel to him since he's never had a family, and if she chooses the second, she'll lose her love and Ray will take him. While thinking about Saya's frustrated face every time she sees her, Ray laughs out loud while holding her stomach and closing her eyes. That's why she doesn't see what's in front of her. She crashes into the solid body of a person. Since she's quite small and the other party seems to be a tall adult, she's pushed roughly backward by the impact. However, her mother has trained her with spear techniques since she was little. And every day she does specific exercises to be flexible, and know how to coordinate her body weight. Thanks to that training she manages to stabilize herself without falling to the ground. Looking up she sees the face of the person she crashed into. It's a man around 20 years old or maybe older. He has very cold and emotionless eyes fixed directly on her. Ray gets scared, taking a few steps backward. The man clicks his tongue with irritation while looking down. My purchase fell because of you, he says in a flat and annoyed voice. Only then does Ray look at the ground and sees many individual instant coffee packets scattered everywhere. She's somewhat stunned observing the quantity. Is it really necessary to buy so much coffee at once? Drinking a lot of it is quite bad for your health, right? But she has no intention of continuing to think about that since she knows it was she who wasn't paying attention and crashed into the other party. She instantly bows her head forward in an apologetic bow. I'm very sorry. The man looks at her with emotionless eyes for several seconds. While she feels there's something wrong with this man, he finally speaks. Pick them up, he orders coldly. Ray wants to complain, but since it's her fault for not looking, she presses her lips with resignation. She crouches down and grabs the fallen plastic bag. She picks up each of the coffee packets before putting them all back in the bag. Once finished, she stands up and hands the bag to the man. As he grabs the bag, the man suddenly shows an extremely wide smile full of yellowed and sharp teeth. Ray gets scared by that disturbing smile. When she tries to quickly move away, the man firmly grabs her slender arm and pulls her forcefully. Follow me now, he orders as he starts to drag her. Ray despairs. It's not normal for a stranger to grab her arm and order her to follow him. This man definitely plans to do something bad to her. She looks around seeking help with pleading eyes. There are many people walking down the crowded street. Seeing dozens of adults passing nearby, she's relieved and screams with all her might. Please someone help me. However, seeing that a small girl is about to be kidnapped in broad daylight, people merely deliberately looked away and pretended not to have seen anything. They continued walking as if nothing was happening. Ray's expression freezes as she's dragged by the men toward a dark alley. Someone call the police. Her father is a policeman and is nearby, so he'll surely come quickly. In response to the desperation perceived in her voice, the people heading to their jobs ignore her. Why is no one helping me? Shouldn't they help a child in danger? Tears begin to form in her eyes as terror consumes her. She puts all her strength into her arm and legs, trying to pull herself backward to escape the man's clutches. But she's definitely no match for an adult's strength. Passing near a small store, she grabs a broom that's leaning against the wall. She uses it as if it were her spear, trying to hit the man. Thanks to her mother teaching her, she knows how to wield a weapon like this. The broom bounces and makes a breaking crunch. The man's body is abnormally hard. Behave, brat, says the man in an irritated voice. Then he raises his free hand in the air. He seems to intend to slap her. Ray gets even more scared seeing his hand approaching her face. She thinks desperately as she closes her eyes, preparing for the blow. A sound of bones crunching is heard. A small but strong hand firmly grabs the man's arm and squeezes it forcefully, making his bones crunch. Not feeling pain in her cheeks, Ray slowly opens her eyes. She sees Arata's indifferent face looking up at the man's eyes. He's considerably smaller than the adult man in height, but he was able to stop his attack. She's amazed by that before coming out of her daze. Those words come out of her mouth and convey her immense relief at seeing the person she loves, and had thought of in her moment of crisis, coming out to save her. Soon, however, she worries. Will Arata also be dragged away by this man? The man, seeing it's just a small child who stopped his arm, shows a sneer of contempt on his face. Although he's a child, his strength certainly doesn't correspond at all to that of a normal child. So that's how it is, says the man as his eyes narrow. You're also. It seems he's about to reveal something important about what Arata is. But Arata speaks first in a kind and calm voice. It's just an innocent mistake, sir. She's a very dear friend, and I don't want anything bad to happen to her. If you want to continue with this, I'll have no choice but to immediately call the police. So would you be so kind as to let us go peacefully? The gleams in the man's eyes dim greatly before recovering their brightness. It happened too quickly, and it's impossible for anyone without supernatural senses to notice it. Without saying a single word more, he turns around and walks away with stiff steps. Ray is confused about why he suddenly changed so drastically and left without fighting. Before it seemed like he wanted to kidnap me. However, since she was so terrified just a few seconds ago, and Arata suddenly appeared like a hero to save her, certainly now the emotion of deep relief covers every corner of her heart without leaving space to think about anything other than hugging him tightly. Thank you, thank you, thank you. People are so scary. A strange man tried to kidnap me and take me into a dark alley, but no one helped me. Everyone just looked away. Are people really this cruel? Arata runs his hand over her caramel-colored hair carefully to comfort her. Everything's fine now. You're safe. And to answer your question, it may not be everyone. But there are definitely many people of that type who prefer to ignore problems and not get involved in others' lives. Even if a kidnapping or violent crime occurs in front of them, they won't move to help. At most they'll leave feeling a bit ashamed. Ray tightens her arms more firmly around his waist. She buries her face in his chest while continuing to sob. At least they should call the police, she murmurs as her body trembles. Arata nods. You're right. They should. Well, it's not just that. Humans are starting to become aware that there are human-devouring monsters due to the immense amount of news coming to light every day. So it's likely normal humans are starting to feel afraid. And that's why they don't want to get involved in others' affairs. After all, the person who was calmly passing by them on the street is very possibly a hungry ghoul. What would happen if they tried to talk to them? Much less go against them for wanting to stop a kidnapping. After a few minutes, Ray moves her wet face away from his chest and looks at him with red and swollen eyes. By the way, what are you doing here, Arita? He smiles tenderly. I don't have anything interesting to do when Saya and you aren't around. So I go out to wander the city aimlessly. I saw you being intimidated by that strange adult and quickly rushed to help you. She murmurs, feeling a tickle in her stomach. It's the first time she feels it, and she associates it with what she's read before in a book. Is it what's called butterflies in the stomach? Arita continues. You know. I was very angry and wanted to break that guy's face. But unfortunately I'm still just a small child. But I'll train a lot to become stronger and be able to always protect you. Ray laughs softly as she wipes away the remaining tears. It's wrong to hit someone. But since the others also ask for it, then I guess it's okay. I'll support you, Arita. Then she stands on tiptoes and brings her face close. Her small lips press against his cheek. I have to go to school or I'll be late. With a blushing face, Ray says those words and runs off. Take care. Arita was thinking about calling Ray's father to come and take her to school, but she's quite impulsive and left directly after giving him a kiss. He wipes the saliva on his cheek as he watches her walk away. Seeing her disappear around a corner, his smiling face gradually fades. Only a cold face devoid of all emotion is shown. He turns around. He starts following the ghoul walking through the alley. The ghoul who was mentally manipulated by him moments ago. It's time to kill the bastard who tried to kidnap his dear friend. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon.com/Owen Moriarty. Chapter 55. Chapter 55. 1633 words A/N. I'm not going to look for a job anymore since I can't find one anyway. So there will probably be daily updates, damn brat. What the hell did you do to me? I bring a finger to my ear and clean it while looking expressionlessly at the ghoul who screamed those words with fury. Well, his shock is understandable considering he was mentally manipulated a few minutes ago. Achieving that control was thanks to having previously consumed living parasites that gave me a great natural affinity with the frequencies of all things. Especially with living beings. I can exert the force of that frequency directly from my brain, expanding it outward. They're like invisible waves. I make that frequency mix with my words to influence the target's brain. Then the effect I call mind control occurs, for lack of better names. And because honestly I'm quite lazy about finding creative names for my powers. Of course, although I call it mind control, it's not as outrageous as Mrs. She can manipulate numerous amounts of people at the same time effortlessly. Being a vampire, she probably can even erase others' memories, or replace them with false memories she wants to implant. Mine, on the other hand, can only influence my target's perception, and make them follow my words spoken aloud. They must be subtle commands, because if I suddenly ask a person to strip naked and dance through the street, it definitely wouldn't work. Much less could I erase memories or replace them. And another critical point is that it has to do with a person's mental resistance or willpower. For example, if my target has very high mental resistance or unbreakable willpower, my mind control would have no effect. Fortunately, I myself have a very high mental capacity thanks to the improvements from parasitic frequencies that accumulated in my brain. And they even granted me mental resistance to resist against external mental manipulations. Though I don't know how effective it will be once I face a powerful vampire. The ghoul before me clenches his fists with rage. Why do you help a human? Aren't you also a ghoul? It's none of your business. Ghoul's eyes gleam before showing a wide smile full of sharp teeth. So you're raising your own personal food. Isn't that right? How clever you are, brat. Letting her grow a bit more before devouring her. I shrug without dignifying that with a response. Then I appear before the ghoul. Taking advantage of him laughing hysterically without his guard up, I clench my right fist with all my strength. I bend my body slightly to get more momentum. Goo! I strike his exposed stomach. The hysterical laughter stops abruptly. His eyes open wide, as does his mouth, from which a large amount of saliva mixed with blood comes out. His body bends around my fist. Then he's thrown backward like a cannonball fired at high speed. Whoosh! The ghoul is violently dragged dozens of meters across the alley floor. He bounces several times against the pavement before his head brutally hits the hard concrete. He gets up staggering. I see blood spurting from his shattered head. The clothes where he was hit are in tatters, exposing his stomach that was penetrated by my fist. In 1 or 2 seconds I observe how his wound heals quickly. I want that too. In fact, my current regeneration is slightly greater than a human's, which is a great improvement from when my flesh was dead and couldn't regenerate so quickly. But still, my current regeneration isn't useful during battle. Ghoul looks up at me with hatred in his red and black eyes. Interesting that you have so much strength despite being just a brat. What the hell have your parents been feeding you? He spits blood on the ground. Even I, who have done ghoul cannibalism a few times, feel envious. I show a smile while walking slowly toward him. I've eaten ghouls, parasites, quinquas. And I have vampires as my next target. Parasites and vampires? What nonsense are you talking about, brat? He shakes his head. Well, it doesn't matter. This is my hunting ground, and I can't allow another predator to live around here invading my territory. The ghoul's clothes tear behind him, and just below his shoulder blade his flesh opens. His cocoon appears emerging as a pulsating mass. Seeing this, I'm disappointed. So it's another cocoon. I honestly hoped this time my enemy would be a Rinkaku-type user. I myself have a developed Rinkaku, so it would be good to eat one of the same type to see what effects it has on my already awakened cocoon. Maybe I'll find a way to make my own Rinkaku evolve even more, because I have the feeling my current cocoon hasn't remotely reached its true power limit. But it doesn't matter. After all, any type of cocoon is excellent fertilizer for me. It'll help me grow my second kakuhu that's still immature. So I mentally welcome Mr. Ghoul, who's running toward me. His cocoon has the form of a huge and heavy gleaming crimson sword. If wielded with all his strength against a normal human, it would surely manage to crush their bones and flatten their flesh against the ground into a bloody paste. I summon my own cocoon, feeling the sensation of my flesh opening. My dark tentacles emerge from my lower back. I mentally manipulate one of them to impact against the giant sword falling toward me from above. Through my cocoon I feel the enemy's hard cocoon exerting force. But he only has one sword. In contrast, I make my remaining tentacles strike the ghoul in his ribs. Ghoul is thrown to the side. His body crosses through the air until he's buried deep in the concrete wall of a nearby building. We're in a dark alley, so normally it wouldn't attract much attention from passers-by. But since I just caused a huge crash and the building itself shook, it's likely someone will come to investigate soon. But honestly, I don't care. As long as they don't know who I am. There's anger burning in my heart because of this damn man who wanted to kidnap my friend. If this had been before recovering my memories, I would undoubtedly have exploded with uncontrolled rage, since I was impulsive. However, now that I've recovered at least 30% of my memories from my previous life, at least I can contain my violent emotions to a certain extent. Though of course that doesn't mean I won't unload all those negative emotions on Mr. Ghoul's face. I approach him as he's trying to get out of the hole in the wall. I start hitting him. Again and again. His face swells, turning blue and purple from the bruises. Even with his rapid regeneration, his face never manages to heal completely before I hit him again. In fact, I'm quite satisfied with this regeneration, since it turns him into an excellent training dummy to unload all my anger without him breaking. At that moment, while my anger slowly discharges, I start to see the walls and floors around me transform into masses of pulsating, and wet flesh at the same time. Screeching incomprehensible voices assault my head. In response to that, I clench my teeth together tightly. And I hit even harder. The ghoul sometimes tries to put his cocoon in front of his destroyed face to protect himself. But under the brute force of my blows, they're easily pushed down to crush his own face against the concrete. As the murmurs stir even more intensely in my mind, and even the ghoul himself transforms into an amorphous mass of flesh in that disturbing illusion, I feel something happen. An audible click in my mind that reminds me of a metal chain breaking. Among the thousands of incomprehensible murmurs attacking my mind, only one phrase begins to become clear while the other murmurs are still unrecognizable. But that phrase says, "Flesh dreams of biting itself, and every eye aches for a sibling." I instantly move away from the ghoul whose face is buried in the cracked ground. I direct a strange look at him while processing what just happened. When I felt that mental chain break and understood that phrase, the horrible illusion shattered. The walls returned to normal and the murmurs gradually disappeared until they were silent. Then I obtained something. A new ability. Could this thing even be considered an ability? How to say it correctly? Too disgusting might be the best description. No longer receiving brutal blows, the ghoul's face quickly regenerates before he jumps to his feet. Damn fucking brat. He curses me in a hoarse voice full of hatred. I smile widely. I have an interesting new trick. Want me to try it on you? Then I direct all my attention to the ghoul preparing his cocoon sword for another attack. According to that phrase I just understood, frequencies extend from my brain, and although they're not visible to the eyes, I can feel them surrounding the ghoul. At that moment, the ghoul's skin bulges in multiple places, tears and bleeds. From those newly opened wounds emerge small sharp teeth sprouting from the flesh. They give him the appearance of having too many hungry mouths chewing and devouring his own flesh from within. While on his cheeks, on his forehead, and on the palms of his hands suddenly open eyes with glassy and lifeless gazes, from which tears of rotten blood flow. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon.com/Olwen Moriarty. Chapter 56. Chapter 56. 12:02 words. In the past, when those two parasites entered my body and navigated beneath my skin trying to reach my brain, I had already experienced a bit of disgust. But that's absolutely nothing compared to what I just did with this new ability. Observing the grotesque scene, where the ghoul has dozens of hungry mouths devouring his own flesh from within, I feel goosebumps run across my entire body. And I actually feel like vomiting. Damn it. I murmur while briefly looking away. Such a terrifying ability. What the hell is this? Get it off me. Get it off me. The ghoul continues screaming with terror, seeing and feeling what's happening to his own body. His screams are heart-wrenching and, if I'm honest, pleasant to the ear. I observe my new ability with fascination. Yeah, definitely too disgusting. I love it. At that moment something even more disturbing happens. All the extra eyes that appeared on his body move simultaneously, directing themselves in my direction. They fix directly on me. Dozens of glassy bleeding eyes looking at me. What the hell are you? M.O. monster. You're a monster. Mr. Ghoul screams with all the mouths that open and close while chewing his flesh. I feel Mr. Ghoul's emotional frequency through my sensory ability. And I'm surprised that a being could experience so much concentrated fear upon seeing me. What the hell did he see exactly in me to have so much terror? Even his two normal eyes suddenly explode like burst grapes. Only the other abnormal eyes scattered across his writhing body remain. That said, it's funny that he calls me a monster, being a monster himself. The ghoul falls heavily to the ground while desperately holding his head with both hands and starts crying like a child. Ah, right. I clap my palms together. If I don't want the cockahoe and heart to be devoured too by those hungry mouths, it's better to act fast. With that in mind, I quickly approach him. I transform my fingers into sharp blades and extract the cockahoe located beneath his shoulder blade. Slurp. Then I rip his heart directly from his chest. Splurt. I also notice a bulging wallet in his back pocket. A wallet full of money. I smile while weighing it in my hand. Well, this is also mine now. I don't have a single yen, so thank you very much for this nice gift, mister. You can rest in peace. And say hello to the Lord of Hell for me. Since I just removed both his kakuho and his heart, even before the mouths completely consumed his entire body, the ghoul is already dead. However, the hungry mouths don't stop, and instead move even faster, devouring with frenzy. In very little time they literally consumed his entire body. Not even a bone remains. The multiple eyes slowly close one by one while the mouths stop chewing. Then everything melts until it disappears completely. It's unsettling. It gives the sensation that nothing ever happened, except for the fact that there only remains a large stain of dark blood on the alley floor, and the penetrating smell of something rotten and dead. And also the heart and kakuho in my hands. First I eat the heart, swallowing large pieces. I feel my hunger disappear, and the sensation of emptiness in my stomach fills. When I finish devouring the kakuho, I feel how my own special organ, where I store RC cells, increases in size below. It seems I'll need to eat a few more kakuhos to complete the second one. I think while evaluating my progress. Also feeling something else that changed in me, I'm curious to try it. I transform the index finger of my left hand into a sharp blade. Then I cut deeply into the palm of my right hand. My blood spurts. It's even darker than before, almost completely black. However, what really surprises me, and at the same time delights me so much to the point where my heart beats wildly with excitement, is that the wound releases small bright electrical currents similar to those surrounding my kagun. And the flesh begins to close. In a matter of seconds the wound is completely healed. Super fast regeneration. I exclaim with joy. It may not yet reach the recovery speed of a ghoul, and much less that of a vampire. But I only need to eat maybe 1 or 2 more ghouls to reach that level. And if I manage to eat a vampire, then maybe I could even recover a severed limb in just a few seconds. Today, thanks to this bastard, I obtained a terrifying ability that reminds me of the Lovecraft stories I read in my previous life. And also a regeneration I've always envied and longed for since I first saw a ghoul heal. In my excitement, I forget something fundamental. My heart beats normally now. That means it's no longer as dead as before. It's a productive day. Wiping my blood-stained mouth with my sleeve, I turn around. With my heightened senses, I notice the winds colliding with the bodies of several people who seem to be running here. They'll arrive soon. I quickly take out the gray scarf with black details that Ray gave me for Christmas. I wrap it around my neck and at the same time use it to cover the lower half of my face. Then I jump with agility and run up the vertical walls of the buildings. Gravity gradually stops mattering to me. It would be great if someday I could fly. After reaching a safe distance, I look back from a rooftop. I see 2 uniformed police officers arriving at the alley. They stop, startled by the huge blood stain on the ground. One of them takes out his radio and starts talking. I pay no more attention to that and descend to the main street, jumping between balconies. Once on the crowded sidewalk, I take out the wallet Mr. Ghoul so kindly gifted me. I begin counting the bills with gleaming eyes. It's 100,000 yen. It's the first time I've had so much money in my hands since I became this monster. Smiling widely, I lower my scarf from my face so as not to look suspicious. I look to both sides of the streets as I walk, blending in with the passers-by, and seeing what I was looking for, I nod satisfied. I enter a large multi-story bookstore. Due to some otaku friends from my past life, I liked light novels and manga. I used to read them almost every day. However, this time I don't enter this place to buy those entertainment things. I'm looking for history and geography books. In the Takagi mansion there's an entire room full of books where Saya regularly drags me to study together for hours. But unfortunately what I need wasn't there. What exactly am I looking for? Well, books about the 24th ward. Because I definitely plan to go there soon. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon. com/Olwen Moriarty Chapter 57. Chapter 57 1309 words I had asked Saya before to tell me about the 24th ward. But she had simply given me a strange look full of confusion, and asked if I actually believed in urban legends. She told me she didn't know much about that legend apart from it supposedly being a battlefield between extremely powerful ghouls many years ago. Of course, she added that since things like alien parasites and human-devouring ghouls exist, what was believed to be just an urban legend might possibly be something that actually happened in the past. To be honest, that information wasn't particularly useful. I think while walking through the bookstore aisles. Besides being a bit curious about the battle that took place there, what I really wanted to know was the exact location. In the anime I watched in my past life, they weren't clear at all about the location of the 24th ward, or at least, I might not remember since it was many years ago. So the only option left is to search for information in books. Of course, I hadn't forgotten to ask Tuka about it during one of our nightly training sessions. However, she replied that she'd already told me everything her parents had informed her about before they died. That the 24th ward is an extremely dangerous place since it's full of wild and crazed ghouls without rationality. Since it's full of powerful monsters, for me it's the perfect place to evolve quickly. Oh, here it is. I grab a book from the shelf. It's a book about Tokyo urban legends. But actually, there might even be quite a bit of truth hidden in these legends when you analyze them. The cover shows an image of a completely destroyed part of a city. It's the only book that mentions the 24th ward, so I consider it useful. I pay for it at the register and leave the bookstore. I walk toward a nearby park that's relatively empty, sitting on a bench under a tree. Opening the book, I begin reading carefully. I only find a couple of useful pieces of information scattered among superstitions, and as expected, exaggerations. So it's not actually an official ward like Tokyo's 23 recognized wards. And it's not a visible city that you can visit on the surface either. 24th ward is beneath Tokyo. A complete underground city, so to speak. And it's made up of numerous interconnected labyrinths of old and ancient tunnels. Interesting. I keep reading. It also seems like a tale created to make children afraid of sewers. Since it's said that if you carelessly enter through the sewers in certain areas of Tokyo, you're likely to encounter the entrance to these dangerous tunnels. And get lost there forever in absolute darkness. I close the book after finishing reading everything relevant. So I shouldn't look for the 24th ward on the surface like it's a normal city. But search through the sewers. The problem is there are literally thousands of sewers scattered throughout Tokyo. And finding one that leads there could be even more difficult, and would take a lot of time. If there are as many interconnected tunnels as the book says, some must be safer than others to explore. While other tunnels might have no exit and be death traps, right? Makes sense. So I set my objective. Find the right entrance to the 24th ward to venture in there. Consume as many ghouls as possible to increase my evolution. And at the same time search for clues about hidden vampires. Since it's far more likely that vampires are hidden in that underground place than wandering freely through the other upper wards where the CCG patrols. Then the probability of evolving from this current state of zombie, ghoul, or whatever I am towards something much closer to a vampire would be considerably higher. And that outcome would undoubtedly give me other types of new powers. Considering if that future is successfully fulfilled, then it would even be possible to make Saya and Rei their best possible versions. Meaning they'd be much stronger than they are now. How exactly would I do it? Well, by turning them into vampires obviously. But I don't know if those two would agree to that so easily. It's a huge decision after all. To stop being human. So another important point must be considered. The matter of my own true identity. I should reveal to them what I really am. It's inevitable if I want them to trust me completely. They might reject me upon discovering the truth. But there's a higher probability they'll accept me anyway. Because of how I've treated them up until now all this time. It's true I've hidden my true monstrous being from them. But I've never hidden my true personality from those two. I've always been genuine in my interactions, in my concerns and above all, in my friendship. That gives me a bit more confidence to reveal my true self little by little when the appropriate moment comes. Anyway, this world is going to go completely to hell. So it's better that they're strong too so they can survive what's coming. Setting aside the apocalypse that would take a few more years to arrive, there's plenty of danger lurking. For Rei and Saya, even the parasites are a threat. The parasites haven't been in this world very long, and unlike ghouls who already have a solid foundation and can interact freely with humans, they're a bit socially awkward. Whether it's a classmate or a school teacher could at any moment use their tentacles to carry out a massacre. And for me, the dangers are. Well, for example, there's the old owner of Antiku. In the anime, Tuka worked there as a waitress along with other ghouls. But now it seems she hasn't met them yet. Another is that man dressed in white who works for the CCG. If I remember correctly, his name is Arima. He's quite dangerous. Probably the strongest investigator in the CCG. And I definitely couldn't defeat him with my current power. Leaving them aside, there are vampires in general. And the most terrifying of all. Damn it. What a dangerous world. Maybe someday with enough evolution, I can obtain the necessary strength to defeat the old man from Antiku. And Arima too. However, could I ever really defeat Alucard? I can't even imagine what kind of powers I'd need to defeat that monstrous existence. It's like comparing an ant to a dragon. Seriously thinking about all that, my idea of going to the 24th ward as soon as possible only became stronger and more urgent. I need power. Much more power than I have now. All right. I jump up from the bench and slap my face hard a couple of times. I need to prepare properly for this. I need a mask to hide my face. A deodorizer to change my body odor. And some long black cloak to cover my figure and height. Then no one could discover my identity even if I ran into CCG, investigators or different organizations. It's a necessary precaution. By afternoon I've already gathered everything I need for my expedition. Of course I didn't buy everything from the same store. Instead I visited many different stores scattered throughout the city. I bought the mask in one. The cloak in another. Gloves in a third. Because it would be strange and at the same time suspicious if I buy long black cloaks, full face masks, and those kinds of things from the same place. I returned to the Takagi mansion before Saya and Mrs. Yuriko get back. Then I hide my new purchases in my room. Tonight I'll rest. But tomorrow I begin my search for the 24th ward. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon. com/Olwen Moriarty. Chapter 58, Chapter 58 1570 words. This won't work. I hit the concrete wall in frustration, and my knuckles pierce through the damp material. Pieces of cement fall into the dirty sewer water, splashing the dark, rotten liquid everywhere. Damn it. It's been a few weeks since I started this shit. At this point, no one would doubt me if I said I've become a fucking sewer rat. Not that I particularly enjoy being in this stinking hole. But it's the most efficient way to move through the city without being seen. Well, that was my initial thought. Because it turns out the sewers in this city are full of obstructions. One after another after another. Another blockage. In front of me is a compact mass of garbage, debris, and who knows what else. Of course, I could simply smash through the obstruction with my fists, since my current physical strength is more than enough for that. But that's not the problem. The problem is that this shit is so compacted with garbage that if I knock it down, all that mess will come crashing down on me like an avalanche of filth. And frankly, I don't feel like getting buried under tons of rotten garbage. I click my tongue again. So what am I supposed to do? Become a sewer cleaner. Take out all the garbage piece by piece like it's my job. Fuck that. I wasn't born a zombie to end up being an underground cleaning employee. But that's not the only thing that has me frustrated to the point of wanting to destroy walls. I activate my ghoul vision and look down, seeing through the concrete. I see red silhouettes with purple objects on their backs moving in much deeper tunnels. They're way down there. Much lower than where I am now, which means there are deeper tunnels. Probably a whole underground system that ghouls use to move around. My prey is right beneath my feet, and I can't caress them with my claws. Despite searching for weeks, I can't find a single damn entrance to those deep tunnels. It's frustrating since it's like seeing delicious food behind glass, but not being able to touch it. And I'm hungry for power. I especially need to work on my second kakuho, which is still immature and weak. I rub my face with my dirty hands. This isn't working. I need to change strategy. And just as I think that, an idea comes to mind. A smile spreads across my face. It's time to try that. One day later, stars speckle the night sky. I'm standing in a dark alley looking down. In front of me is a headless body because I ate it. Grumble. My stomach makes a satisfied sound as it digests the parasite. And then I feel the frequencies in my brain intensifying, becoming clearer and stronger, while also becoming much easier to manipulate. I look at the corpse before me. The frequencies flow from my brain, so I activate that disgusting ability I obtained a few weeks ago. Flesh dreams of biting itself, and every eye aches for a sibling. The corpse's skin bulges in multiple places, tears open and blood spurts from the wounds. And from those wounds emerge mouths full of small, sharp teeth. They chew the corpse's own flesh, devouring it from within. But that's not what interests me now. What interests me are the eyes. On the corpse's cheeks, on its forehead, on its hands, eyes suddenly open. I use the frequencies to focus on one of those eyes and separate it from the body. Squelch. The eye detaches with a wet, disgusting sound. Once my brain frequency reached a fairly considerable amount, it became possible to do something similar to telekinesis. Of course, making wooden tables or heavier objects float is naturally still beyond my reach. But for light objects they're quite useful. And so, using my pseudo-telekinesis, I make the eye float. The eye floats in the air before me, looking at me. It seems scared as if it has its own consciousness. The eye will continue to exist until I cancel the ability, or until the mouths finish completely consuming the corpse. I stare at the floating eye. Now comes the interesting part. My plan is simple. If I can connect this eye's vision to my own vision through the frequencies, then I'll be able to see what the eye sees. And if I can do it with one eye, I can do it with hundreds. Imagine it. Hundreds of floating eyes scattered throughout the city. Seeing everything and spying on every corner. There would be nowhere for ghouls to hide from me. Hee hee hee. I laugh alone in the dark alley. An all-seeing eye. That's what I need. I extend the frequencies from my brain toward the floating eye. I try to connect with it to synchronize its vision with mine. It doesn't work. The eye looks at me but I can't see through it. I cancel the ability, and the eye explodes into a mass of flesh that falls to the ground with a wet sound. That was just the first attempt. I have time. 1 week later. 1 parasite per day, and only 1 ghoul. I've consumed them before using my ability with the intention of connecting my vision with the eyes I create. But no matter how many times I try, no matter how many frequencies I use, it just doesn't work. Above all, my brain is starting to suffer. Growling. I squeeze my head with both hands. The murmurs have returned and manifest in the form of hundreds of screeching voices. Damn it. I look up at the night sky. The stars are crying. Tears of blood fall from them, staining the sky red. That's not real. I know it's a hallucination, but it feels so real. I look around. The streets and walls are transforming into masses of pulsating flesh. Blood spurts from the cracks while the air smells of sulfur. I stagger backward and crash into a wall. Damn it, even the sensation is so real. I feel hot, wet flesh pulsing under my fingers. The murmurs grow louder. Among that chaos of incomprehensible voices, one voice becomes clearer as the seconds stretch on. My eyes widen. This reminds me of the time I obtained the ability to grow mouths and eyes on my targets' bodies. Inside me, I feel chains breaking until they shatter. And then the voice speaks clearly. Separate your seeing from your being, and the seeing shall be your 1,000 eyes. The next moment, the hallucinations begin to recede, and the murmurs fall silent, making my previously aching head feel light. At that moment, information flows into my brain and implants itself there. I open my eyes wide when I understand what I've just obtained. A laugh escapes my throat. He. This is exactly what I needed. I don't hesitate a second to activate the new ability. A wet sound resonates in the air. Simultaneously in front of me, the space distorts slightly, and then an eye appears. It's not like the eyes I created before attached to corpses, since this eye is round, the size of a fist. Bright white sclera, crimson pupil accompanied by a non-blinking eyelid. And behind the eye, there are masses of flesh that move and pulse. It reminds me of the Eye of Cthulhu from Terraria, a game I used to play in my previous life. Unlike the game, this eye has no consciousness of its own since it can't see on its own, nor does it have will. To put it bluntly, it's an object or a tool I can use. Thanks to the information implanted in my brain, I know exactly what to do, so I emit a thread of my mental frequency from my brain and extend it toward the floating eye. The frequency merges with it. The eye blinks at the same time I blink. And then in my brain, a second vision appears. I can see what the eye sees. I can see my own face. Ha, it works. It works perfectly. I look at the eye and the eye looks back at me. But actually it's me looking at myself. This is fucking awesome. I make the eye float left, then right, up, down. I can control it with my thoughts, and I can see everything the eye sees in real time. This opens up so many possibilities. Never again will I miss a hidden entrance to the ghoul tunnels, nor will I ever have to walk blindly through the sewers. Then I think of something. If I obtained this ability. Some time ago, when I obtained the ability to create mouths and eyes on my enemies' bodies, it was because I was furious. I looked at that ghoul who tried to kidnap my dear friend, as if I wanted to devour him with my own eyes. Was that the trigger? And this time the trigger was my desire to see where my eyes can't reach. Following that train of thought, I can obtain abilities according to what I want to do. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon. com/Olwen Moriarty Chapter 59. Chapter 59 1694 words I decide to call this ability, All-Seeing Eye. Sounds cool, right? Plus it fits perfectly with the purpose. Observe whatever I want, whenever I want, wherever I want. I like it. All-Seeing Eye. I repeat the name aloud while the floating eye stares at me. Well, technically it's me looking at myself. I play with the eye for a few minutes. I make it spin, make it float in circles, even make it do a little flip in the air. I also discover something important. I can hear what's happening through the eyes. They clearly don't have ears, yet the frequencies of sounds interact with the frequencies in the eyes, and are transmitted directly to my brain. That way, if someone speaks, there'd be no problem understanding what they say. But then I realize something. Being the size of a fist is inconvenient. I look at the eye that's approximately the size of my closed fist. If I want to go unnoticed, then I need to be as discreet as possible. And a giant eye floating around is definitely not discreet. So I concentrate my will on it. Squelch. Squelch. The eye begins to shrink. Until it reaches the size of my thumb. Much better. I do some more tests and discover I can freely manipulate the eye's size. The standard size is that of an adult fist. but I can make it bigger or smaller as needed. However, there's a problem. Size directly affects the ability's quality. The smaller the eye, the shorter its vision range, and it sees things more blurry at a distance. The example that comes to mind is like trying to look through a poor quality camera. The bigger the eye, the farther it can see, and with greater clarity. The vision radius expands enormously. But making it very large has a cost. It consumes much more energy from my brain frequency to manipulate it. Nothing's perfect. The distance the eyes can move away from me is directly tied to my brain frequency reserve. Just like the quantity of eyes I can materialize at the same time. I close my eyes and do mental calculations. With my current brain frequency reserve, I can materialize 3 eyes and have them travel up to 1 kilometer from my position. If I wanted to send them farther, I'd have to reduce the quantity to 2 eyes. If I use just 1, I think I can send it freely up to 2 kilometers. And if I want to use more than 3 eyes at the same time, the distance traveled must be cut enormously. Maybe only a few hundred meters. But that's not all, since there's another important problem. Mental load. Setting aside my brain frequency reserve, seeing many different images simultaneously will undoubtedly impose a great mental load. It's like trying to watch multiple television screens simultaneously, and each one showing different things. My brain won't be able to handle it. I need to find a way to strengthen my brain. Maybe by eating more parasites, after all, they improve my mental capacities. Or maybe there's another type of creature I can eat for that purpose that's better than a parasite. Well, that's something to investigate later. For now, I need to focus on what I have. Still, setting aside those limitations, I'm quite satisfied with this new ability. Let's get to work. I materialize 2 more eyes. Now I have 3 eyes floating in front of me, looking at me. And me looking back at them. It's a bit disturbing when I think about it that way. I reduce the size of the 2 until each is the size of my thumb. I mentally manipulate them and send them in different directions. One goes north, another east, and the last west. Their mission is to search for the entrance to the 24th ward. They'll fly through the sewers to explore every corner, until they find the dam entrance to the 24th ward. This time they won't be able to hide from me. During the day and during the night, the small eyes work tirelessly. Well, technically it's not them working, it's my brain. Because controlling 3 eyes simultaneously while watching live and direct everything they capture is fucking exhausting. It's like having 3 different thoughts at the same time. I rub my temples. It's not like it hurts, but I definitely feel the mental fatigue. To deal with this, I keep my own eyes closed most of the time. I discovered that helps reduce mental consumption a bit. If I only focus on what the eyes see, without adding my own vision to the mix, it's more manageable. Fortunately, it seems the eyes have built-in night vision, since they see in the dark sewers as if it were daytime. Which is quite favorable for me. I don't have to worry about missing anything important just because it's nighttime. Also, being small and silent, nobody notices them. Well, almost nobody. What the fuck? One of my eyes is being chased by a stupid cat. Does it think it's fun to hunt it? Go away, silly cat. I make the eye fly upward, out of its reach. The cat jumps once more, fails miserably and falls on its butt to the ground. It makes a pathetic sound before giving up and walking away with its tail between its legs. Fly if you can, dumb cat. I'm currently in a park, and some humans are looking at me with strange expressions. They probably think I'm crazy or stupid. But honestly, I don't give a shit. At the Takagi mansion, after dinner, I'm quite excited about my new toys. That is, my new abilities. What's with you? Saya looks at me suspiciously. She's sitting across from me at the table, with her arms crossed and one eyebrow raised. You have a silly smile on your face. What are you planning? Nothing, nothing. Saya narrows her eyes behind her glasses but eventually sighs, and gives up investigating the matter further. We finish dinner and after washing our plates and glasses, we prepare to go to our respective rooms. As I watch Saya walk toward the stairs, I think about my new ability. The all-seeing eye. When I increase the quantity I can use at the same time. And when I increase the range from which they can operate. Then I can assign one to Saya, one to Ray, one to Tuka, and one to Mrs. That way, all four will always be under surveillance. Of course, I know that can be considered stalking, and I don't deny it since it's totally stalking. But I think in this dangerous world full of ghouls, parasites, vampires and who knows what other shit, it's necessary. It's for their safety. Then there's a consideration I must take into account. Just seeing them might not be helpful if they really find themselves in a worrying situation. What good is seeing through an eye if I can't do anything to help them? What if they're being attacked and I'm kilometers away? I could only watch helplessly. I shake my head violently since I don't like that thought at all. I need to find a way to make the all-seeing eyes able to attack somehow. Since they have no will of their own, and are just tools I control, maybe I can find a way. Maybe I can equip them with some kind of offensive ability. Shoot rays from the eye. Like a laser? That sounds cool. Or maybe they can explode when I command it. That also sounds useful. Well, after taking care of my own business in the 24th Ward, without doubt my next objective will be to equip those eyes with offensive abilities. Or at least, I'll train to make that possible. I approach Saya, who's already on the last step. I smile at her and stroke her head full of soft pink hair. Good night, Saya. She stays still for a moment, then nods. I see a blush growing on her cheeks, turning them a pink shade. Gee, good night. After her soft voice, she lets out a huff and recovers her tsundere attitude. Sleep early, idiot. Tomorrow I'll wake you up again when the sun rises and the birds sing. She has big eyes that observe me from below up to the top of my hair. She gets a bit closer and raises her chin slightly to meet my gaze. Really have grown. Is it that easy to grow? Well, considering you didn't eat properly, I guess it's normal you grew with the meals this young lady has made you. She puffs out her chest a bit with pride. This young lady. I want to kick her. I mean, the only thing your food does is give me a stomachache. Still, I pinch and stretch her face while she starts scolding me. I don't stop until leaving her cheeks red. Much better. Don't you dare. Though I already dared. She furiously stomps the floor while steam comes out of her head. She quickly turns around and flees to her room. It's quite fun to mess with this cute tsundere. I laugh before entering my own room and lie down on the bed, looking at the ceiling. The three eyes are still active. I close my own eyes and concentrate on the three visions. I see dark tunnels, dirty water and mice running near the walls. However, none of that is especially interesting, apart from reminding me that in the past I used to eat those rats. The next day, I'm sitting on a bench under some trees near a bar. My own eyes are closed while I concentrate on the visions of my three explorer eyes. They've been searching for hours. And finally, suddenly I open my eyes. My lips curve to form a wide smile. There it is. One of the all-seeing eyes has found the right entrance to the 24th Ward. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon.com/Olwen Moriarty Chapter 60. Chapter 60 1565 words. Drops of foul-smelling water drip from the ceiling and fall to the cracked floor with a constant sound. I see rats scurrying away at full speed, fleeing from something, probably from me. Then suddenly one scream after another echoes through the tunnels. He's around here. Hurry up and catch him. He's murdered many of our comrades. Does he think he's getting out of here alive? Not in his dreams. Shouts like that can be heard resonating everywhere. My back is against the wall, in a small fork off the main tunnel. In the straight tunnel, the footsteps are getting closer and closer. I can hear them clearly, and concentrating on the sound their footsteps produce, I can reach the conclusion that there are 5 ghouls. But I'm not worried about them seeing me since the fork where I am is dark and hidden by a blind angle. Kukuku. A smile spreads across my face, which is hidden by an oni mask used in Setsubun. If you're wondering how I ended up in this situation, then the answer is quite simple. It all started about a month ago, when I ventured into the 24th ward from the sewers that my all-seeing eye discovered. At first I just entered the Ghoul Society of the 24th ward without getting involved, especially to learn their customs, and to understand how things work down here. And just as Tuka once said, they're quite violent. I discovered that most of those who live here are cannibals. Ghouls who eat other ghouls. It makes sense when you think about it. After all, ghouls have a much higher concentration of RC cells in their bodies than humans. About 10 times more or less according to what I remember from the manga. So it's natural that those seeking more power would be tempted to commit what's known as ghoul cannibalism. In some cases this custom might be seen as bad, but for those who live here that's not necessarily true. After all, only by becoming stronger by consuming other ghouls can they have more opportunities to survive. It's survival of the fittest. During the first week I also used the 3 all-seeing eyes to traverse the 24th ward, and although I didn't cover the entire perimeter, I obtained important information. Locations of some ghouls' territories, the hierarchies they have, who's strong, who's weak, who eats what. All that information is useful to me. From the second week, I started hunting. Of course, since I know the territories thanks to my 3 floating eyes, I don't enter where the strongest ghouls are, since I'm not that stupid. So cautiously, I started by attacking solitary ghouls first, whether those wandering alone through the tunnels, the weakest ones, or the most careless. After killing them, I ate their kakuhus and hearts. That way, by the 3rd week, I had already killed more than 15 ghouls. If I wasn't being cautious, and went directly to kill them indiscriminately, I probably would have already eaten more than 30. But caution is important. I don't want all the ghouls in the 24th ward to unite against me. At least for now, I'm not yet prepared to see ghouls coming after me like thousands of cockroaches. 15 ghouls, huh? It's impossible to get this quantity of ghouls in such a short time on the surface. There's not much to do about it since up there you have to be careful with humans, with the police and the CCG. Down here, there are only ghouls and nobody cares if a ghoul kills another ghoul. I must say it's paradise for a predator like me. And during that time, the footsteps get closer. I smile seeing a ghoul with red irises and black scara passing right in front of my hiding place. His nose moves as he sniffs the air. It seems he's picked up the scent of the perfume I sprayed on myself. Every time I go to the surface, I don't forget to buy perfumes before returning. After all, due to my special condition, my body seems to be especially attractive to supernatural beings. If I don't disguise my smell to confuse their sense of smell, throwing myself in here without preparation, I'd undoubtedly have hundreds of ghouls wanting to bite my ass right now. The ghoul becomes alert. He opens his mouth to shout "Fwoosh." But before he can make a sound, I move. My body becomes blurred, I appear behind him in an instant. Sheink. His head detaches from his body, and goes flying through the air, spinning like a kicked ball. It falls to the ground and rolls a few meters before stopping at the feet of another ghoul. His headless body staggers for a moment before collapsing. In my right hand is my sword, which is heavy and large, black in color. Overall it appears to be made of metal, except it has cracks throughout the blade. And inside those cracks, there are materials that seem to be made of bright crimson flesh mass that constantly pulses. If you don't pay enough attention, you wouldn't notice that sound similar to what a heart produces. This sword is the manifestation of my second kakuhu in the form of a kagun. Kokaku kagun. The one that sprouted above my rinkaku kagun. A week ago, after eating so many kakuhus, my second kakuhu fully matured. And now I have 2 different kaguns. Rinkaku and Kokaku. Well, it must be said it's a bit funny wielding this sword. Being only the height of a 10-year-old child, the claymore in my hand is much larger than me. I probably look ridiculous. The other four ghouls who were running behind the one who was instantly decapitated stopped dead in their tracks, as their eyes opened wide seeing their dead companion on the ground. What? The reason these ghouls are following me is because for the past few days I started hunting groups of ghouls. They're more dangerous since they're not alone, but they're also more nutritious. Apparently, in the 24th Ward information has spread about a madman who indiscriminately hunts ghouls. Everyone in this particular area is on alert for my presence. When I went after this group and killed one of them, I turned around and had some follow me and lured them here away from their base. After all, I had seen at that time with the all-seeing eyes many ghouls living together in that area. They would surely be alerted if we fought there. It's not like I'm afraid of them. With my current strength, unless I encounter S-class or higher ghouls, I wouldn't be in much trouble if I started a fight with dozens of normal ghouls. Rather, I'm worried that my prey will become alert and start fleeing. I can't allow my buffet to escape. So faced with that, my strategy is to divide a large group and eliminate them little by little. One of the ghouls before me activates his cocoon. His back opens and wings made of pulsating flesh emerge. Then they crystallize, becoming hard and shiny. Die, bastard. Seeing this, my eyes shine with excitement. I show a wide smile. My surroundings become blurred and I disappear from where I was. I appear before the ghoul just as his wings fill with sharp spikes about to be launched at me. Too slow. I swing my enormous sword. The claymore swings horizontally with enough force to produce a sound of air being whipped. The ghoul's upper body separates from the lower. It does a magnificent flip in the air, spinning and spinning before impacting the tunnel ceiling. During that process, blood splatters the floor, walls and ceiling while his intestines spill out and hang like ropes. Without having his upper half, his legs fall to the ground. This scene reminds me of a certain sorcerer with white hair and blue eyes. The faces of the three remaining ghouls turn pale witnessing this scene. How can a Kukakukagun user move at such a stupid speed? They scream in panic. That. While it's true that for a normal ghoul a Kukaku is extremely heavy, and grants a slowing effect to its users, that's only because their strengths aren't high enough. I'm a being that evolves as I devour others, therefore, up until now my physical strength has far exceeded a normal ghoul. Lifting a Kukaku in the form of a claymore, apart from being just a bit awkward to wield, doesn't require such extreme effort as to slow me down. In fact, I feel quite comfortable with it. The three ghouls look at each other, and by their emotional frequencies they emit, I can sense fear. We must return. We have to inform the boss about this. This guy is a monster. They plan their escape, and want to flee to inform what I assume is the most powerful ghoul among their group. Faced with the panic on their faces, I show a smile full of teeth. Want to escape? My lower back opens. I don't allow it. My tentacles emerge and writhe and pulse. No one gets out of here alive. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon. com/Olwen Moriarty Chapter 61, Chapter 61. 1716 words. I woke up feeling a little masochistic today. So hit me with your power stones. With 100 power stones, there will be a bonus chapter. This is the first time I'm facing many ghouls at once. Well, not that many. Just 3 now that I killed 2. But still, for a CCG investigator they would undoubtedly be considered lethal, or at least for investigators who aren't very skilled yet. After all, these ghouls themselves don't reach a rank. They're common ghouls. Probably B rank. But still they could tear apart novice investigators without any problem. The 3 remaining ghouls realize they can't escape, and are frozen in place, eyes wide open seeing my Rinkaku tentacles writhing behind me. And no way. A ghoul with tukaguns? How is that possible? A chimera. Their faces look ugly than someone who just ate shit. It's funny seeing them this way. From the frequencies they emit, they seem even more desperate to escape since I feel fear emanating from them. But as I said before, I won't give them that privilege because they are my fertilizer. Two of my tentacles suddenly elongate and pass over the ghouls' heads before embedding themselves deep into the tunnel ceiling. The ghouls are confused and exchange glances, seeming to wonder if I missed and my aim is that bad. What? I smile under my Oni mask and withdraw the two tentacles. Large chunks of ceiling fall heavily and the tunnel rumbles with the impact while enormous rocks completely block the way they came from. Dust rises and fills the air, making the dark environment turn gray and hazy. The ghouls suddenly realize what I've done. He trapped us. If we want to escape, the only thing we can do is face him and kill him. They sharpen their gazes and their eyes shine with determination before bringing out their own kaguns. I quickly slide my eyes over them and analyze what type of users they are. One has a bikaku materialized in form of a tail. Another has a kukaku that resembles an enormous crimson shield sprouting from his shoulder. And the last has a rinkaku, which takes the form of several tentacles. The one I killed before had ukaku. Taking that into account, then these were organized forming a team of the four types of standard kagun users. Ukaku for long-range attacks, kukaku for defense and tank, bikaku for balance and versatility, and rinkaku for close-range attack and regeneration. Actually, it could be considered a pretty functional team, but the ukaku's already dead so they're left without a complete team. My gaze stops briefly on the rinkaku user. Generally those of this type regenerate fast, and if you give them time, they can start breaking the combat rhythm. Taking that into account, he's the one who must die first. One of the ghouls steps forward. The kukaku one wielding a heavy shield. We can take him if we work together. Though this type of user tends to be slow due to the weight of their kagun, they are the backbone of the team since they can defend, cover, and block routes to allow their teammates to attack without worrying about being flanked. As long as they are alive, the battle will continue, but since they don't have much attack power, they won't kill the enemy quickly. Unlike the other types of kaguns, the bikaku kagun user doesn't excel at anything since it's not the strongest or the fastest, however for many it's the most stable since it's balanced and very versatile. Since I've already fought against these types of users many times during this time, I've accumulated a lot of information about their strong points and weak points. If I were a normal or even experienced CCG investigator who found himself in this situation, I'd sweat with worry and maybe would have died. But I'm not one. I'm a predator and they are prey. As expected, the ghoul with rinkaku attacks first and his tentacles launch toward me. He has fewer tentacles than me and they don't seem to have black scales that make them hard, much less electricity running along his kagun. After all, electricity is something I obtain thanks to consuming a quinqua. I look at the direction of the tentacle pointing at my heart, and it seems to move in slow motion from my perspective, since my improved perception makes everything look slower. Without retreating, one of my own tentacles intercepts the attack. Our kaguns clash and the ghoul's eyes shine for a moment. He uses his other tentacle that point at my neck and my stomach, but at that moment the flesh of the enemy's tentacle that's connected with mine begins to swell and deform grotesquely before opening. Then mouths appear along the organ, dozens of mouths full of sharp teeth biting each other and devouring the kagun from within. The ghoul, seeing what's happening to his kagun, releases a shriek and soon emits screams of pain. Aya! My kagun! My kagun! The mouths devour his tentacle quickly. He probably won't bother now that his kagun is being eaten, however I know this will make the mouths eat the kakahu eventually, which I can't allow since I need that kakahu intact. So I emit the frequency from my brain and manipulate the mouths to leave the kagun and go for the main body. The mouths obey and crawl from the tentacle toward the ghoul's torso before appearing on his chest, on his arms, on his stomach, all biting him from within. Gaia Ia. His screams of a pig being sacrificed are pleasant to my ears. One down. I say while the rinkaku ghoul collapses on the floor, and his body writhes in agony while the mouths devour him. The bikaku user seizes that instant and launches from the side, with his tail pointing directly at my neck. Whoosh! Moving fast from a blind spot. For him it's probably his best attack, but for me, who has sharp senses, his movement is predictable. I turn my torso enough to dodge it, and his tail passes centimeters from my neck. At the same time, another of my tentacles covered with lightning shoots out with electricity sparking along its length before piercing the ghoul's right chest. Clish! I pin him against the tunnel wall, and the impact makes ceilings and floors tremble. Blood spurts from his mouth while his eyes open enormously, and when my tentacle leaves his chest there's a large hole through which I can see the wall behind. But as a ghoul, he has great vitality and is still alive. 2 down. The Kukakukagun user roars. Damn bastard. He advances toward me while his shield hardens even more until the surface becomes shiny and crystalline. He probably thinks his defense makes him untouchable, and that he can withstand anything I throw at him. It's possible he also knows he can't escape, and the only thing he can do is attack, even if he knows he doesn't have enough strength to defeat me. I must say he's brave, and at the same time stupid. Rinkaku user at that moment has an unrecognizable body, flesh-bitten from inside with holes everywhere and blood covering the floor. I cancel the ability cause I don't want them to eat his heart or his kakuho. With him dead, I walk forward while my steps echo in the tunnel. Smiling, a tentacle extends from my back and moves slowly. The Kukaku user thinks my attack is coming for him, and prepares to block it while raising his shield. You won't touch me. However, my tentacle dodges him and passes over his shield before going straight to the Bikaku user who's kneeling by the wall. It enters through his open mouth and the ghoul can't even scream, while the tentacle pierces his throat and exits through the nape. Squelch! Blood and pieces of flesh splash before I withdraw my tentacle, and the kneeling ghoul's body falls forward. I look at the one remaining, the Kukaku user, and mock him. Only you're left. How do you want to die? Have your own flesh devour you? Decapitated? Dismembered? Or do you prefer I eat you alive? I give you the privilege of choosing. The ghoul's expression is dark and at the same time pale since fear is finally catching up to him, and his shield trembles slightly. Then he fakes a smile that's pathetic. Wait. He raises a hand. See, can you let me go? I can exchange it for information you want. I bring a hand to my chin as if considering it, and from under my Oni mask I put on a smile. Information I want, huh? Seeing that I'm suddenly interested, the ghoul recovers some joy. Whatever you want. I can tell you about territories or about powerful ghouls about. I interrupt his desperate babbling. What am I? The ghoul is stunned. What? What am I? I ask again with a calm voice. The ghoul blinks. A ghoul. He responds with his head tilted, as if it were obvious. I shake my head slowly. In an instant I disappear from where I am using my explosive speed, and my body becomes blurred before appearing next to the ghoul so fast he can't even react. His eyes barely have time to open when my fingers transform, the nails elongate and harden becoming sharp. Scrush. The Kukaku that should be impenetrable I pierce effortlessly before penetrating his chest. My fingers close around something pulsating, hot and wet. Ghoul makes a weak sound while blood spurts from his mouth, and I rip his heart from his chest. Blood drips from it while it still beats in my hand. The ghoul collapses, his shield vanishes and his body falls into the foul-smelling puddle. I look at the heart in my hand. I'm something much better than a ghoul. I murmur to myself before bringing it to my mouth and biting. 20 advanced chapters on Patreon.com/Olwen Moriarty Chapter 62. Chapter 62 1293 words. It doesn't take long for 5 hearts and 5 kakuhus to disappear from their own bodies and be swallowed by me, who burps and pats my belly satisfied. That was good. I feel my mental energy restore at an extremely fast speed before filling completely. At the same time, from my stomach extends the same warmth I always feel when eating, and that slightly expands my own body, making me a bit taller while gaining a bit of muscle. At that moment, I have 3 floating eyes moving stealthily through the area where these 5 ghouls came from. The eyes capture and transmit what's happening to my brain, and what's seen there is like a large camp made with fabrics and pieces of metal. Subtracting the 5 I've already killed, outside the camp there are about 15 ghouls lazily patrolling. Taking into account they could be guards, then inside there must be many others, probably resting or doing whatever ghouls do in their free time. To verify this, I have one of my eyes enter a room that's quite large, excavated directly into the rock. And I see many restless beings moving back and forth. The strangest thing is that these beings don't look like the ghouls found outside. They're somewhat hunched with unnatural postures, and because the room is dark their eyes that don't have black sclera like ghouls shine crimson red. By the frequencies I capture through the eye, I feel chills throughout my body. They produce sounds of low growls and heavy breathing, and since there are many of them the sound produced makes them seem like. I don't know why, but seeing the appearance of those monsters suddenly reminded me of zombies, and I pronounced that word without thinking. Those monsters look forward and seem to want to pounce on something, while at the same time seeming afraid to do so. I make my all-seeing eye focus forward, penetrating vision toward the deeper darkness of the room. And there 2 red orbs shine in the center. Those red orbs are actually extremely cold, and mocking eyes observing the zombie horde with amusement. This eyes belong to what appears to be a ghoul, especially because of his red iris, except he doesn't have black sclera, and actually his skin is much whiter than a ghoul's. At the same time he opens his mouth and long fangs are revealed. Suddenly he lowers his head, and bites the neck of a woman he has in his arm. The only reason the woman didn't scream in fright at this horrible scene is because she's unconscious. Sucking sounds are heard. Slurp. Shortly after a minute, with his mouth full of blood dripping down his chin, he throws the woman's pale body toward the zombie horde as if throwing meat to hungry dogs. Kuh! Dozens of feet echoed in the room, while strong hands quickly dismembered the woman's body. While the flesh was chewed and swallowed with disgusting sounds. Ha 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 ha. I who was watching that scene through my all-seeing eyes suddenly started laughing out loud, unable to contain myself. Because I've found my objective. A vampire. It's actually a damn vampire. I head toward a place where I had hidden my things I brought from the surface. A small hollow in the wall I covered with rocks so nobody would find it. Arriving there, I move the rocks aside and retrieve a backpack. I open the zipper and from inside I take out 2 pairs of smoke screens I stole from some careless police officers. I should take that too. Then I grab flares and along with the smoke screens, I put them inside my black cloak. Since firearms did nothing against existences like ghouls much less vampires, I hadn't even taken the time to steal them. After doing this, I returned to the place from where I lured those 5 bastards a while ago, following the same path through the tunnels. I walk for about 30 minutes and arrive there, slowly approaching the camp while keeping my steps silent. Takeda. Do you know where he went? It's been a while since I've seen him. That bastard, surely he and his squad went looking for meat again. With our Lord present, I wonder why they even bother looking for food. Since the Lord became our boss, we've never lacked delicious human meat to eat. With my sharp senses, even from over 100 meters, I can hear what the men say as they converse, not knowing their death approaches. It makes sense these ghouls didn't know where the 5 went, after all I guided them to separate them from those who stay here watching. So, smiling under my Oni mask, I approach through the darkness toward my prey. 70 meters. 50 meters. 25 meters. Then I put my hand under my cloak and throw something that goes flying through the air. Where it falls it's inevitable it would produce sound, especially in the underground area where everything echoes. Hearing the commotion that produced echoes resonating everywhere, the ghouls become alert and look at the object rolling toward them. One shouts with an alarmed voice. Who's there? Then the object suddenly releases thick smoke that covers the entire area in seconds. PSSSSHHH. The smoke screen expands rapidly. Soon the smoke-covered area fills with coughs and curses while the ghouls try to clear the air. Immediately after, shadows are seen running at an alarming speed through the gray smoke, moving so fast they're barely visible even to ghoul eyes. After the sound of something penetrating flesh, a ghoul lets out a miserable scream before falling to the ground with a thud while blood spurts from his slit throat. The blurred figure moves toward the next target, and a ghoul's head is ripped from his neck with a fluid movement before flying through the air magnificently. When 5 more were eliminated in rapid succession, they seemed to start understanding the situation despite the panic. "We're under enemy attack. Be careful. I'm listening to you, Captain Obvious." Following the origin of that shout, the figure moving fluidly through the gray fog, which is me of course, beheads the ghoul with 5 sharp claws growing on my transformed fingers. She-ink. Desperate screams escape their throats as they try to defend themselves or escape, but in the dense smoke they can't see me coming until it's too late. And in little less than 2 minutes, all the ghouls perished in puddles of their own blood. If I'd known they were so weak, there wouldn't have even been a need to separate those 5 from these. Then, when the smoke slowly dissolves and vision starts to clear, a terrifying presence appears from inside the camp that makes the air itself feel heavier. "What's all this noise? Who the hell are you?" Pronouncing those words with a deep and resonant voice, the man looks at me who has claws covered in blood dripping to the floor forming small puddles. Behind the man are more than 3 dozen zombies that growl and writhe restlessly, but don't dare move without his permission. "You've finally come out, mister. Although it's the first time I'm encountering a vampire with the intention to kill, even if this vampire had subjugated the ghouls and somehow become their boss through fear or force. I don't feel intimidated." Faced with that terrifying presence the vampire gives off like a wave of power, I laugh out loud, unable to contain myself. "If you like this, throw me a power stone. It might save my life. At 100 power stones, I'll drop a bonus chapter." Chapter 63, Chapter 63 1532 words. "If you like this, throw me a power stone. At 100 power stones, I'll drop a bonus chapter." Ha, a little ghoul who's come knocking at my door. "You may have killed these useless ones, but what makes you think you can defeat me, a vampire?" The vampire radiates an immense amount of oppressive aura that makes the air itself feel dense and hard to breathe. Before him, I feel tingling throughout my body. With my tentacle cocoon materialized behind me, I lower my stance slightly while looking at the vampire with narrowed eyes and lips curved in a smile. "Is that so? I certainly don't know what it's like to fight a vampire to the death, but what can I do? For the sake of evolution, and for the sake of my survival. Setting aside these who've become too weak, I must devour the stronger ones." A cold, mocking smile draws across the vampire's mouth. "Well then. Fight with everything you have, little ghoul." Ruambly. Killing intent explodes from the vampire like an invisible shockwave. It's thick, and although invisible I can feel it clearly, making my body feel cold. But killing intent remains just killing intent, and is useless to me since with a powerful mind strengthened by all the parasites I've eaten it doesn't affect me in the slightest. Wind whips and the surroundings suddenly blur. The next moment, from up close I see the vampire's surprised eyes that didn't expect me to move so fast. In a movement produced in slow motion from my enhanced perception, I catch Mr. Vampire's movement as he raises his hands. In the past when I used my perception to the maximum, all my enemies moved in very slow motion. However, even if this is the case with the zombies behind the vampire who barely move, actually the vampire's speed is too fast. The claw traces a cold line toward my neck with the intention of beheading me, and I bend my body downward dodging it by centimeters. Accompanied by especially terrifying whistles, 2 tentacles pierce through the vampire's body through the chest and abdomen. Ski-ish. Once done, I whip my 2 tentacles and the vampire is launched like an arrow shot from the firm string of a bow. Fwoosh! Smoke rises from where Mr. Vampire impacts the tunnel wall causing pieces of rock to fall. Even before I could rejoice at that successful hit, the next moment I feel tingling in my stomach. Looking down, I see a hand with a claw protruding from my own torso. With my all-seeing eyes that are still active floating around the area, I see the same vampire behind me with a sadistic smile. His wounds produced by my 2 tentacles writhed before regenerating in less than a second. A cold voice comes from the vampire's mouth. "Since you dared to throw me, let me treat you the same way." Then the pressure of wind being launched at an alarming speed settles from all directions on my body. In my blurred vision I see the wall I'm destined to crash into and probably be crushed against. Letting out a snort, I bend my body and all my tentacles open, giving the appearance of a parachute. That manages to reduce my speed. Then I place my foot gently on the wall at the last moment before impact. In my stomach where the hand previously pierced through, it's now covered by small tendrils of lightning that move and create a tickling feeling as they work. My intestines and flesh quickly close, and are covered by my skin stretching over the wound. How delicious! Too delicious. Is it even possible that this flavor exists? I hear that exclamation and look toward the vampire, who has a face full of ecstasy while licking his hand stained with my blood, savoring it. His crimson eyes gleamed as he looks at me with hunger. To hide my body's scent and prevent ghouls from going crazy in my presence, I had used a large amount of perfume to the point where it stung the nose. But once I was wounded and my blood spilled, the perfume's scent was instantly overshadowed by my own scent that so attracts supernatural beings. Vampire smiles cunningly and looks at the zombies behind him. No, they're not zombies, although they look like it. In Helsing there were so-called ghouls, although these ghouls are different from Tokyo ghouls. These ghouls without reason are created by vampires when they bite humans. So as their master, a vampire can order his ghouls and they would obey without question. Vampire says with an authoritative voice. Attack him. Don't kill him, but capture him. Hearing that, I'm amused to realize the vampire's intention. It seems he wants to taste my blood directly while I'm still alive, probably drink it to the last drop. After all, a dead person's blood will taste worse than fresh blood from someone alive. Unexpectedly, I was born in a state no better than dead. The reasonless ghouls that were restless suddenly moved toward me with quite fast and determined movements. Kou. They're weaker than the ghouls I'm used to facing since they're much slower. And another disadvantage is that they're beings without reason, which means their attacks are easy to anticipate. Though their advantage lies in being many, more than 30, and they can overwhelm anyone by numbers. Above my rinkakukagun, my back opens again and my kukakukagun materializes with a wet sound. It slides down my arm and forms in my palm an enormous black claymore with pulsating crimson veins. A kagun that can detach from the body and be used freely. It's not something you see every day, but there's a term to call that type of ghoul, although I don't remember what it's called. The surrounding ghouls emitted intimidating growls as they pounce on me with outstretched arms. Kawa! I observe the situation with a calm expression while calculating trajectories and weak points. Is it even necessary to look for weak points in tofu? I narrow my eyes beneath the Oni mask and lunge forward. A dark arc tears a ghoul in half, cutting it from shoulder to hip. Taking advantage of the momentum, I spin on my foot and the claymore claims for lives in the blink of an eye as their bodies fall in pieces. Following that event, the blue lightning in my tentacles expands and covers the claymore's blade. A blue lightning sweeps the area in a wide arc. The devastating force of the claymore along with the crackling lightning leaves the bodies charred with the smell of burnt flesh. Suddenly I feel chills run down my back. Extreme danger approaches with killing intent. I turn quickly and the claymore positions itself in such a way that hands with claws were blocked by the blade. You have sharp senses. 2 kaguns, it's the first time I've seen one. Vampire makes that comment with an expressionless face while pressing against my claymore, and looks at me as if I were a piece of delicious meat he wants to savor slowly. My tentacles extend forward quickly and trap the vampire by his arms and legs. Then the claymore strikes him with all my strength, and his body is thrown once more backward. The next moment, my head feels dizzy, and all I knew is I was hit by something incredibly fast, and that made my body bury into the ground below, creating a crater. Vampires are really strong. Kiriko didn't use even half her strength that time. Tentacles strike the ground forcefully and I'm propelled backward like a spring, just as a leg enters the place where I was moments before with enough force to shatter metal. In a blur, the vampire's figure disappears and appears behind me. Vampire moves his arm too fast to follow completely, and my arm holding the claymore is cleanly cut off and falls to the ground with a wet sound. At that same moment, the vampire's arm is also cut by my knife fingers that I had moved in a simultaneous counterattack. It seems we both had similar intentions of mutilating each other. The problem was that vampire laughs mockingly while his severed arm already begins to regenerate. Don't you know? No matter what you do, you can't kill me. Cut off my hand, for what? I can regenerate it in seconds. On the other hand, you can't, and your regeneration is slower than mine. How foolish you are, little ghoul. You don't have to rub salt in my wound. Grabbing the vampire's severed arm that still rides on the ground, and stomping hard to propel myself, I take distance by jumping backward. Then, while looking directly into the vampire's eyes, I remove my Oni mask upward, revealing my mouth, and bringing the arm to my lips I bite down hard. You can read 20 advanced chapters on my Patreon. com/Olwen Moriarty Chapter 64, Chapter 64 1439 words. We've reached 100 power stones. Thank you so much. Here's the bonus chapter. At 200 power stones, I'll drop another bonus chapter. A being that calls itself a hunter naturally. Kill him. Would be enraged if it saw someone it categorized as mere prey eating its arm. That's what the vampire felt upon seeing Arata bite his flesh with that mocking smile beneath the Oni mask. Uttering cold words, his cold eyes fixed on him, and he no longer even cared about what he said before, about wanting his slaves to only capture and not kill him. That order no longer mattered when his pride had been wounded. At his command, the slaves responded with hungry growls and surrounded Arata in an increasingly tight circle. He writhes uncomfortably a couple of times while biting his lip, his body trembling slightly. He seems to be going through a painful moment, but doesn't let out any sound of pain despite the agony in his tense posture. When a claw is about to catch him, he kicks hard and smashes the ghoul's head, making it explode like a rotten watermelon. Executing that abrupt movement, he staggers and almost falls to his knees. Another ghoul approaches, taking advantage of his weakness, and scratches his shoulder, leaving deep bleeding furrows. He uses his only remaining hand and catches the ghoul's head before crushing it against the ground with a wet and horrible sound. Some time has passed observing this strange battle, but the vampire finally understood something. So that's how it is. The reason why Arata appeared so weak while fighting the vampire's ghouls, despite being dominant and powerful before when he massacred the guards with ease. I've never allowed others to drink my blood. I see, so it has this debilitating effect on whoever consumes it. I've never heard of anything like that. I suppose I'm special. The vampire smiles with satisfaction upon discovering this interesting detail. Yeah, bitch, you're special. Arata twists his lips sarcastically while fighting. What are you, Alucard? While the vampire rambles on about how special his blood is, Arata kicks a ghoul zombie until he knocks its brain out through its eye sockets. Squelch! His body convulses again, violent tremors running down his spine, and at the same time the vampire, who isn't willing to keep watching a small fish massacre his valuable slaves, decides to act personally. Swoosh! Is it because Arata is weakened? He doesn't even react when a claw approaches vertiginously from his front. He emits a grunt upon feeling the claw penetrate his stomach once again. He even wonders if this vampire has perverted fantasies about penetrating stomachs, since this is the third time he's done it. Using the vampire's proximity as a signal, Arata tightly grabs the vampire's arm with his only hand, and thinks about using his other arm to split his face. That won't work. Now he remembers that his other arm had been cut off, and is lying somewhere in the tunnel. Not finding another suitable method, he has no choice but to use his head to smash the vampire's face. Having evolved a lot from eating so many cockahus and parasites, it's natural that his body would reach explosive strength, and that also applies to his head. The vampire, who has been headbutt full-on, feels as if he's been hit by a cannonball at full power. Accompanied by the refreshing sound of a watermelon being split, the bat's head is pulverized. Red juice mixed with eyeballs and brain matter splash the wall, and create a picturesque scene. Looks delicious. As expected of a vampire, his regeneration rate is something that can make a person green with envy, especially Arata, who sees how the moment he looks away, the vampire is complete once again with a new head. Haven't I told you? It's useless. The vampire attacks ferociously again, and Arata suffers again under the relentless blows. I'm a little scared if this doesn't work, but I guess I have no other choice. For several minutes, he transformed into a punching bag that gradually filled with wounds that accumulated ceaselessly. But the strange thing is that he's not healing as he should. Even the vampire is frowning at this, but didn't think much about it. After all, it's more advantageous to have an enemy who has lost his ability to regenerate than an enemy who can heal his wounds. Arata's back impacts deeply into the ground, creating a crater, and he lies there as his eyes slowly go out beneath his Oni mask until only darkness remains in them. Is that all? You can't expect much from a ghoul. But I'm angry that you killed all my slaves. The vampire looks at the motionless body with disdain. Arata, who is lying on the ground like a corpse, upon hearing him speak raises his hand with great effort that makes his entire arm tremble, and while the vampire makes a sound of curiosity at this last act of defiance, he shows him the middle finger. Mr. Vampire expression darkens so much it looks like a face that's been scrubbed with charcoal. In his anger radiating from every pore, he forgets his principle of don't kill the food to enjoy the blood more, and attacks with fingers hard as a knife. The next moment, Arata dies. His head detaches cleanly from his neck as if it were butter cut by a hot knife, and black blood spreads across the floor in a growing puddle. The vampire clicks his tongue with annoyance. I got carried away and killed him. Well, can't do much about it. With cold and indifferent eyes, he turns around and tells his zombies with an authoritative voice. Bring me the food to the room. The zombies rejoice, emitting happy grunts, and approach quickly with their eyes fixed on Arata, who has his body separated from his head. Because of the spilled blood emitting a tempting smell, they even had the perverse thought of wanting to go against their master's order and devour him themselves. Being aware that his slaves want to go against his order because of Arata's intoxicating smell, the vampire tells them in a threatening tone. Don't eat him, since he's mine. I can feed you later. As the vampire walks toward the exit of the battle area, he clicks his tongue. I must join the other vampires to see how the plan is going. After all these years of preparation, it must be almost complete. At that very moment, he realizes something is wrong, as he feels a sensation of something sticky adhering to his skin. Due to the fight that occurred before, especially with many ghouls that died plus the slave zombies, blood was spread all over the floor forming puddles and streams. But now, for some inexplicable reason, the floor is dry and no blood is seen anywhere. He looks at the decapitated corpses or ones cut in half, and there's no blood flowing from their bodies either. They look like mummies that have dried under the desert sun for decades. He hears the sound of his slaves letting out growls of fear, backing away. What's happening? And it was also at that moment that from his body he feels a strange pull, as if something were tugging from within. It's the blood that seems to want to escape from his interior and head toward. Dying again isn't pleasant. Upon hearing that familiar voice, he turns around quickly, and his cold expression becomes rigid for the first time in centuries. All the blood had previously disappeared, is surrounding Arata's body, forming a liquid sphere. Headless, the body rises from the ground. Then it crouches down, grabs his head that's a few meters away, and places it on his neck. Instantly, his head sticks to his neck with a wet sound. Squish. His arm that was cut off before and is a few meters away, dissolves into blood, and the next moment moves at a speed extremely defiant to the vampire's senses, becoming a crimson river that joins Arata's stump before his arm is new and fully functional. Swoosh. All the accumulated blood that's floating around him forming a grotesque orbit is sucked into his body, disappearing into his skin's pores without leaving a trace. It was the moment when Arata stopped being a zombie, ghoul, or parasite, and became something more than a vampire. You can read 20 advanced chapters on my Patreon.com/OwenMoriarty. Chapter 65, Chapter 65 1742 words. If you liked this, throw me your power stones. At 200 power stones, I'll drop another bonus chapter. Nobody sane would like to experience death, even if someone promised them that after dying they'd receive a juicy reward worth the suffering. What if it's a lie? What if it doesn't work? Those were doubts that would normally go through their heads. That doesn't apply to me, of course. The moment the raspy voice in my mind told me the conditions to evolve, I accepted immediately without thinking twice. The condition of dying. Although it scared me at first because the idea of dying intentionally is terrifying even for someone like me, I accepted death's scythe, or in this case the vampire's claws, with open arms. Then in my state of death, my soul finally evolved. An evolved body more than it is, which can be described as amazing compared to how it initially was when I was born as a pathetic zombie, accompanied by a weak soul that hasn't evolved even once. One can notice the incongruity in that. It's a dangerous imbalance. If my body evolved once more without my soul strengthening, my soul would leave my body like water overflowing from a full glass, and as a consequence my body would become an empty shell without will or consciousness. I don't know where such rules came from, however I experienced death and mutation at the moment of dying under the guidance of that horrible voice. And I also realized something. Because my soul was quite weak at first, I couldn't remember much from my previous life. Even the reason I was born imperfect, to such an extent it can be considered a walking dead. All that was because I had a very thin soul that wasn't capable of supporting heavy loads like memory, proper brain processing, or supporting the healthy body of a normal human. No wonder that every time I ate supernatural beings and my physical body evolved, I suffered from sharp pain that made me writhe. I always thought my body was the one suffering so much that even I, who's not supposed to feel pain, started suffering in those moments. However, all that time I was wrong, completely wrong. Because the one suffering was my soul. It's a blessing that until now my soul didn't abandon my body despite all the evolutions I've forced. I don't know what that being is that speaks unpleasantly and raspily in my mind, but I can be sure it's the same one that speaks when I receive new horrifying abilities about creating mouths and eyes. And it may also be the source of those hallucinations and the noises of incomprehensible voices I hear when my soul is crumbling under pressure. But despite those terrifying drawbacks, it doesn't take away the fact that this time I received great help, otherwise I would have undoubtedly died trying to evolve by consuming the vampire's flesh and blood without proper preparation. Once my soul fed enough eating what seemed to be floating souls in that death space under that voice's guidance, my own soul became more robust and stronger. In a matter of seconds, my soul had returned to my body that properly evolved during my death, and merged once more becoming complete as it should have been from the beginning. I'm met with the vision of a vampire pale as a notebook sheet, looking at me with disbelief in his crimson eyes that almost pop out of their sockets. Yes, it's normal for him to be surprised because you're not supposed to have this regeneration. Moreover, are you a vampire? No, impossible. You're a ghoul. You can't be a vampire. I'm starting to smell that you're also a vampire. Vampire seems to have lost some neurons and started pulling his hair with his hands, resembling a person about to go crazy. The being he previously saw as weak ghoul prey, suddenly upon awakening from death has a vampire smell mixed with ghoul. He must be quite confused right now. Above all, his mouth drooled copiously. The vampire says with a trembling voice, "No matter, since you smell even better than before." He has eyes bulging with hunger. For him to look at me this way. This is bad. Is my scent now that tempting to this vampire? I smell my arm but don't notice anything different. Well, if I smelled as good as these beings smell me, I'm sure I couldn't have resisted the temptation to feed on my own flesh and blood. Which is terrifying just to imagine. Attack him. Bring him to me. The zombies' bodies tremble before reacting and approaching me roughly, dragging their feet on the ground. I smile coldly under my Oni mask. It's a shame the corpses are dry and no longer have blood after I absorbed it all. I dodge one of the zombies trying to grab me and cut from the junction of his arm with his armpit using my fingers transformed into blades. Blood spurts in torrents from the open wound. Then I just have to draw out some blood. Instantly a strange scene occurs that makes the vampire recoil in surprise. The blood that hasn't even touched the ground yet suddenly floats in the air defying gravity, clusters and forms what appears to be an elongated rope of blood that writhes like a snake. The vampire instinctively retreats, and the zombies stop consequently, confused by their master's mental disorder. Then, blood rope undulates and produces a sound of splitting air like a supersonic whip. Leaving a crimson trail that shines briefly, the rope moves at blinding speed before stopping abruptly. It seems nothing happened. But more meticulous observers would have noticed a terrifying scene. Fine lines appeared on the zombies' stomachs and thighs. They're so thin they're barely visible. From their thin lines of blood can be seen slowly spurting. But the vampire doesn't seem to be a meticulous observer to notice that, and instead shouts at his slaves. What are you waiting for to attack him? They move again, obeying the order. And because they moved. Ha 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 ha. While I laugh out loud, the zombies' upper parts fell forward, sliding over their cut hips, and their legs fell backward in the opposite direction. Intestines spill on the floor along with blood splashing in puddles. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I observe this scene with delight. I move my finger upward and the spilled blood regroups before forming first a very sharp blood sword, then a spear, a halberd, and finally transformed into hundreds of small floating blades. I abruptly fix my finger pointing at the vampire, and as if all the blood knelt and obeyed my will, the blood blades produced horrendous sounds in the wind. Fwoosh! The next moment, the vampire doesn't even realize what happened, but his body filled with holes that let you see what's behind him as if he were Swiss cheese. He looks down and is incredulous seeing the holes in his torso. Still, he's a vampire so he can regenerate quickly. He seems to have that kind of confident expression on his face. But then, the blades that flew through him melt and form liquid ropes that surrounded the vampire's body. The rope tightens around his body, and the vampire tries to resist by strengthening his muscles. At that same moment, the rope gains edges that cover along its entire surface, and thanks to that they easily entered the vampire's body, cutting muscle and bone. Wait. His word vanishes the moment his entire body is cut into small, uniform pieces. If it didn't have a red color, and instead the flesh were white, you'd think they were small pieces of freshly cut tofu. I laugh mockingly while observing the vampire pieces fall to the ground. It's true I was weaker than the vampire before evolving. His attacks surpassed me in speed and strength, but I still trusted I could escape if things got very bad. In fact, that was my intention at first. After chewing his flesh and drinking his vampire blood, simply flee and evolve in peace. However, I was informed by that raspy voice that my soul would escape my body before I could properly evolve, and that my soul would be dissolved into nothingness if I didn't die externally first. So I had acted weakly to make the vampire's job easier, letting myself be hit without resisting much. But that's in the past. Now I'm confident I can even fight several of this type of vampire at the same time without sweating or exerting myself too much. I look at the zombie's floating blood and make a disgusted expression before throwing it away with a gesture of my hand. Rotten blood. Disgusting. Then I manipulate the vampire's blood that's scattered everywhere. His crimson blood floats in front of me, forming a pulsating liquid sphere. Opening my mouth, the blood begins to be sucked. I drink more than 4 liters of vampire blood in the blink of an eye. Delicious. My vision becomes blurred, and I'm forced to transport to a different place. I'm standing on top of a building. I look toward the horizon, and see smoke rising toward the sky until forming thick black clouds. I hear voices, screams and cries of men, children, women and elderly. I look down at the city. Cars have collided, concrete from walls has collapsed. In the midst of this scene of destruction, there are vampires laughing sinisterly while commanding hordes of zombie ghouls to attack humans. Men and women dressed as police and military empty their magazines at the human devourers. But the bullets from weapons don't hurt them. Human flesh is torn by sharp teeth, and their blood is absorbed by vampires. Few ghouls among the humans use their cocoons to protect themselves from the hordes. In that brief second I was there, that's all I could observe, because suddenly, I'm dragged from that vision to reality. I look at the pieces of flesh scattered on the floor. Is Mr. Vampire's memory? Is it a memory from the past? That doesn't make sense. It's a vision of the future. You can read 20 advanced chapters on my patreon.com/Olwen Moriarty Chapter 66, Chapter 66 1383 words. The day I managed to evolve into something more than a vampire, I exit the 24th ward. In the sky the sun is still out with few clouds around, and in fact it's the point where it shines brightest in this place. It seems to be 3 in the afternoon according to the sun's position. I stretch my body comfortably under the sunlight, feeling the warmth on my skin. I'm a vampire now, so isn't it contradictory that the sun makes me feel so good? Well, not that it matters anyway since I'm not burning or turning to ashes like in the movies. Praise the sun. Although I wouldn't say I desperately missed it, it's true I desired it a bit after spending so much time in dark, stinking tunnels. After all, while it's true that every day I leave the 24th ward to return home, and enter again early the next day, this is the first time I've left so early to see the sun at its highest point. Cheerfully, I take out a change of clean clothes from my backpack and removing my clothes that are torn in several places along with stains of dried blood, I clean my skin with a towel soaked with water from a bottle I also kept before putting on the new clothes and throwing the dirty clothes in the nearest trash can. After that, I walk through the streets under the strange looks of people who see me pass. But feeling good about myself for managing to evolve again, I ignore those people and their curious looks. Well, I'm already used to them seeing me as a monster with undead skin, so it's not like it's a new sight or anything. Arriving at the park where I once talked with Mrs. Kiriko, Ray's mother, I stop for a few seconds before reaching a conclusion. I approach the bench under a cherry tree, and lie down on the bench enjoying the weather. With the soft and slightly cool breeze caressing my skin, I hear the birds singing, the noise ants make walking among the park grass, water being spit from the mouth of a stone lion and spilling into the clear pond, and other pleasant sounds of nature I couldn't perceive so clearly before. Little by little I close my eyes, feeling peace, before frowning with annoyance. Because at that moment, one of my all-seeing eyes that are still in the 24th ward, transmits to me in real time something happening there. In the scene where I died at the hands of Mr. Vampire, then evolved in body and soul, and then killed Mr. Vampire leaving a bloody mess. There a silhouette approaches. The silhouette stops to silently look at the crime scene, with what appears to be curiosity. Since the all-seeing eye has its own night vision, the darkness vanishes, and I can see the scene as clear as day despite being in the deep tunnels. That said, the silhouette is also seen perfectly. It's a slender figure, and by its body proportion it seems to be a woman. I say seems to be because actually neither her body nor her face are seen clearly. That's because her body is covered by white bandages like a mummy, wrapping every inch of skin. Over it she wears a garnet cloak with hood and drooping ears on both sides, and a flower-like scarf around her neck. Even on her bandaged face, 2 holes can be seen at eye level. The hole made in the left eye bandage is dark, and her eye isn't visible there. On the contrary, her right eye shines intensely with an unmistakable glow. Black sclera and crimson iris. She's a ghoul with a caucagon. I'm surprised because I know exactly who she is. While I curse, the bandaged figure approaches a blood stain stuck to the cracked floor and crouches down slowly. That's my own blood, the one that was spilled when I was beheaded by the vampire. When my soul entered my body, I had absorbed all the blood from the surroundings to regenerate, and at the same time enhance my bodily evolution. However, traces like these remain that have merged with the ground and are difficult to separate. Knowing what's coming, I sigh with resignation. As expected, the woman's silhouette extends her long arm, and using her slender finger touches the ground where my dried blood is. The bandage on her finger is stained with black, viscous blood. She brings her finger to her lips between the bandages, and slowly sucks her finger. The figure is petrified in place, before her body started trembling, as if she'd received an electric shock. I look with strangeness through the all-seeing eye at this disturbing scene. And hearing the moans produced by the pleasure of consuming something extremely delicious, I reach a conclusion. A pervert. At that moment, the all-seeing eye receives frequencies from her voice that sound somewhat crazed and excited. Interesting. A true predator has finally appeared, huh? Is this the prologue to something catastrophic? What she says could have sounded quite chilling and cool, but seeing how she instantly sucks her finger after speaking in that dramatic tone, the impression I have of her isn't about someone cool and threatening, but of a pervert with weird fetishes. At that moment, the woman's figure slowly straightens up, and suddenly her face moves upward looking toward where my all-seeing eye is floating. I curse opening my eyes in the park, before sitting up on the bench with alarm. Through the all-seeing eye, I observe how the bandage around her mouth moves to form what appears to be a wide, disturbing smile. Opening her lips, she says with an amused voice, "Found you." While I'm about to make my all-seeing eye disappear to prevent her from tracking me, she acts, and in the blink of an eye her cocoon materializes in a crimson blur before striking the eye and completely destroying it. As a consequence, an extremely unpleasant pain attacks my consciousness, as if someone were driving burning needles into my brain. If the eye that's connected to my consciousness is destroyed, it could cause serious mental damage that could leave me incapacitated. At least, that was when my brain was incomplete and weak. After evolving and recovering my brain, and even surpassing by several levels a normal brain of both humans and supernatural beings, now facing this amount of damage doesn't cause me great losses apart from having to endure a bit of annoying pain. After about 10 seconds, the pain in my consciousness gradually fades, and only the sensation of a sore head remains as if I had a hangover. I sigh while rubbing my temples. I was careless. I trusted in my all-seeing eye's stealth, its small size and discreet nature for most, and didn't think someone would find it so easily in the darkness of the tunnels. But thinking about the other party's identity, I suppose it makes sense the situation turned out this way. As expected of the founder of Aogiri Tree. Although about 5 years more or less remain before the Tokyo Ghoul story officially begins, she must have already founded the famous terrorist organization much longer ago despite herself not being more than 20 years old currently. Find me. It might be true. I couldn't hide forever anyway. So should I cause a bit of chaos in the world? While I laughed carelessly at that exciting prospect, I get up from the bench while cleaning my but shaking off the dust, and head to the Takagi mansion. I'm a bit curious what this crazy woman will try to do. It's quite obvious the taste of my blood awakened her curiosity about me, and she might start looking for me from now on. In the past I might have worried and become paranoid. But honestly, now I only feel anticipation for the type of encounter we'll have. Halfway there, seeing the reflection in the glass of a closed store, I stop abruptly. To hell with this. If you liked this, throw me your power stones. At 200 power stones, I'll drop another bonus chapter. Chapter 67, Chapter 67 1649 words Erida, do you like that girl so much? To come back at this hour? Why don't you go and live with her? Eyes as pristine as fire crystal behind round glasses, and long, silky pink hair tied in twin tails. Saya gave the impression of a little jealous girl seeing me return home late at night, like a wife waiting for her unfaithful husband. In this case, for her Onii-chan. I tell her with a mocking tone. Won't you even give me a proper welcome like we agreed before? Saya startles with wide eyes, and her cheeks turned crimson at an alarming speed, as if someone had painted her cheeks with red watercolors. Shut up. It's just that. She bites her lower lip and pinching the hem of her skirt with her fingers, looks away from me to the side with a humph, before starting to say with a trembling voice. Welcome back. Oh, Onii, I'm not hearing you. What did you say, Saya? I lean toward her bringing my ear closer exaggeratedly. I said welcome back, silly Onii-chan. She kicks my leg hard, and I make a sound of pain. Then she tells me with a red face. Don't tease me again or else. Or else what? I look at her with a provocative smile. She blushes even more and with a voice tinged with fury. You better shut up. At that moment, Saya seems to realize something about me, and using that as currency to change the subject, asks me with curiosity and suspicion. Why are you wearing your hood? Wherever you go with that, you'd look suspicious. What are you hiding? Ah, that. I scratch my cheek under the hood and start sweating coldly. The reason I returned late at night was because although I had left the 24th ward at 3 in the afternoon, while I was on my way here I discovered something amazing and problematic. My current appearance. It's impossible to hide it with simple excuses. Then I had the brilliant idea to return at night so that Saya and Mrs. Yuriko would already be asleep, and I could sneak into my room. Who would think Saya would be waiting for me in my own room? I find a sudden excuse that I know sounds stupid but I say it anyway. Ah, right. It seems I forgot something at Tuka's house. I'm going right now, won't take long. Where do you think you're going? Saya grabs my arm tightly, and although with my current physique I could easily break free from her grip without effort, I don't want to hurt her so I sigh inwardly. Seriously? How many times is it? Every day of the week. All day long. Suddenly Saya becomes furious and locks my room door before turning toward me with abrupt movements. What happened? Why does she suddenly seem so terrifying? Well, I know it's my fault for putting that excuse at the beginning to disappear every morning for more than a month still. It seemed Saya was really damn jealous. With a dangerous look I'd never seen in her before, she approaches me slowly. She starts saying with a voice. Well, I don't know if I should say it's a sweet or threatening voice. Tell me, Oni-chan. What's so good about that Tuka, or whatever that you always go to her house? Oh, are you madly in love? Hey, answer me. She gets closer. Is she so important to you? More than Ray and more than me. Terrifying. I start sweating again for a completely different reason. An aura that not even the terrifying Mr. Vampire who killed me can have escapes from Saya at this moment. Is this the fury and jealousy of Tsundere little sister? Clearly it's not. I realize then something I hadn't noticed before despite the obvious signs. It seemed Saya really loved me, not as an older brother but as something deeper. And remembering, Ray also showed similar signs. I always thought I wasn't worthy of that kind of affection, and tried to ignore those feelings directed at me, justifying it in 1,000 ways. Maybe that excuse worked along with a brain that's been rotten until today at 2 in the afternoon. Moreover, that terrifying aura escaping from her. It certainly wasn't just a form of literary description, but I can see it physically as a crimson manifestation pulsing around her. Once I evolved, in addition to some powerful new abilities related to blood, I obtained a huge boost in each of my existing abilities. That includes my perception of a person's mood through frequencies. Now I can see manifestations of moods in the form of auras, and be able to feel them clearly. Faced with this type of affection shown at such an early age, one would say it might just be a passing childhood crush. And being honest with myself, even I might have come to think that in the past. But now I can see and at the same time feel the intensity of that affection colliding against me like an unstoppable tide. Why does Tsundere like Saya have this type of behavior? Is it possible she also had a Yandere attribute hidden all this time? What caused it? It's possible that once again it's my fault for being an idiot. Ignoring Saya's feelings all this time. Putting the excuse that I would go see another girl. And moreover, every day of the week for more than an entire month. Still, isn't this personality change too shocking? From a Tsundere to a Yandere in the blink of an eye. It's hard to imagine normal Saya, and imagine this Saya before me at this moment. One unable to express her affection properly, and who can only show it through acts like sharp vocabulary and continuous scolding, or even through hits. And the other at a completely opposite pole, being unable not to show affection for the person she loves in an intense and suffocating way. Clearly there are some loose screws in this little pink-haired girl's head. Seeing her approach me with a threatening look that should scare me, I can't help but feel this Saya is also adorable, and I start laughing out loud. Saya freezes in place, and with raised eyebrows asks me with confusion, "What do you find so funny?" I shake my head while trying to control my laughter. Inside, I feel relief. Is it relief because Saya loved me and not someone else? That's true, I can't deny it. If it were before today's evolution, the previous Arata surely wouldn't have realized the reason why Saya is so angry, despite her affection couldn't have been more obvious to anyone with eyes. Much less would I have realized my own feelings toward her, confusing the desire that Saya not love someone else as something one would feel as protective concern for a little sister. Despite the previous me also being capable of feeling others' emotional frequencies, there were quite a few emotions I myself didn't manage to be able to fully understand, and in the end simply stopped thinking about it out of frustration. With my train of thought heading in that direction, I approach Saya, closing the distance between us. She looks up a bit to meet mine, and seems a bit scared suddenly. By her emotions escaping from her, I realize she's scared because she thinks maybe she's gone too far, and maybe she's scared me with her behavior. Raising my hand toward her, she instinctively closes her eyes expecting who knows what, and with a smile I put my hand on her head, stroking it gently. Saya opens one eye with a small sound of surprise and looks at me surprised. I show her a sincere smile and tell her, "Don't be silly. I apologize for being away from you too long. The reason I was with Tuka is simply because she's my friend, and we both always play video games. It's quite fun. Although it's uncomfortable to lie that way, especially when I can feel guilt growing in my chest, I feel at least this would help prolong a bit more before revealing the truth about myself and what I was really doing." Saya asks with a low voice, "Is it true? Playing video games? I know it can be addictive for young people, but besides, it's suspicious that it's every day and you always come at 6 in the afternoon, especially today when it's already midnight." She pauses. "I even asked Okasama to go pick you up, but she said there's no need to worry about you." I rub her hair, messing it up gently, before lowering my hand and pinching her cheeks. "Yes, it's true. So you don't need to be so jealous, since from now on I'll stay home with you more." "Ah, that's right. I remember next week, I'll also attend the same school you go to." Saya's terrifying look gradually diminishes, and her crimson aura that before was violent like a sea of flames now calms down, although it maintains its intense color. She slaps my hand that was pinching her cheeks while letting out a snort. "Who's jealous of you?" With cheeks painted pink, she say brusquely, "What are you waiting for to take off your hood?" I'm dumbfounded. What the hell? Did she return to her tsundere form? I suppose today there's no way to escape from showing my new appearance. Feeling depressed about it, I lower my hood slowly, and Saya, who was watching me attentively with narrowed eyes, suddenly opens her eyes wide and freezes in place. You can read 20 advanced chapters on my patreon.com/Olwen Moriarty. Chapter 68, bonus chapter. 2241 words. We've reached 200 power stones. Thanks a lot. Here's the bonus chapter. At 300 power stones, I'll drop another bonus chapter. The girl with long, straight pink hair speaks with a trembling voice. Arata. She looks at me with wide eyes, and her glasses have slid down her small nose, becoming crooked, which makes her look quite adorable. I, who suddenly feel like a ghost under her astonished gaze, scratch the back of my neck and look away toward the window. Yep, it's me. What an awkward situation, damn it. Saya comes out of her surprise, taking a step back with uncertainty, then takes a step forward again, before standing still in place with her hands pressed against her skirt. It seems her head just went blank, and now she doesn't know what to do or how to react. Her orange eyes travel over my face attentively, then rise to my head, examining every detail before returning to look directly into my eyes. She's trying to confirm if the boy standing in front of her really is me, or if someone replaced me during the night. Is it really you? A parasite hasn't eaten you, has it? Saying that, she seems ready to flee, I give her a knock on the head. Or rather, I give her a gentle tap on the head. What's with that hit? She protests while rubbing the area where I hit her, and I see the tension that enveloped her finally disappears. It's okay. You're the same fool as always. So tell me, how did your hair change? Did you dye it? That color didn't suit you. She approaches timidly and extends her hand toward me before pulling a lock of my hair with a doubtful expression. Of course not. I don't need something like dye to be handsome, you know. She rolls her eyes and releases my hair with a snort. Who cares about that? But how is it possible then? Is it a wig? Having said this, she squeezes my hair again and again, until I grab her hand. Hey, stop. In fact, now I can clearly feel pain since all my senses work properly. However, this type of pain, being unable to feel it all this time, is enjoyed. Ah, really? She turns around and sits on the bed with her arms crossed, looking away, apparently angry. But I understand her feelings since it must be shocking to see this change. After all, my hair before was a dirty ash color that looked like dust accumulated on a wig, or like the gray hair of your dying grandfather who smokes 3 packs a day. That horrible color was mainly because my body wasn't entirely alive, so the hair grew without proper pigmentation. Now my hair is black. It looks like I used completely black paint to bathe it, leaving it shiny and healthy. I run my hand through my hair and enjoy the soft, silky sensation. It's very different from my rigid hair that seemed like dry straw. Well, for some reason it changed color. And your eyes? My eyes are also no longer opaque and cloudy like those of a dead fish that kicked the bucket 3 days ago. When I had looked at my image reflected in the glass of that closed store, the first thing that caught my attention was precisely my eyes. They're blue eyes, bright and full of life, like the cloudless sky. It's quite rare if I'm honest, since I never had eyes like this either in my previous life or in this one. Although I'm deeply grateful they weren't crimson eyes like a vampire. They also changed, as you can see. Well, she's never seen how my eyes really were in their natural state since I always use contact lenses to hide how cloudy and dead they looked. It's strange. You look different but at the same time the same. She gets up and approaches again. She runs her fingers across my face while pressing her fingertips against my cheeks, pinching them slightly. Her gaze is full of curiosity and confusion, but the crimson aura around her, the affection she feels for me, hasn't diminished in the slightest. Your skin is quite white and soft. I finally managed to get rid of that sickly grayish skin color that made everyone look at me with disgust and fear. Now it's milky white, maybe too white as if someone had cut my throat, and all my blood had drained out drop by drop. Well, overall I no longer look like a zombie at all. I look like a healthy, normal boy, although perhaps too pale like those magazine models who never see the sun. If I looked at myself in the mirror once more, I'd undoubtedly curse myself for being too damn handsome. I'm incredible. Girls are going to fall at my feet. Maybe I'm being a bit narcissistic, but after spending years looking like a walking corpse, I think I deserve to enjoy my new appearance a bit. She stays touching my face, before realizing and pulling her hand away abruptly with a red face. She sits back on the bed looking away with her arms crossed. So you finally decided to make yourself a bit more handsome, huh? Is that it? I thought you had no hope left. Saya tries to appear indifferent, and her tone of voice seems brusque. But she can't hide her curiosity, or the affection she feels for me. Despite her attempt to act tsundere, her crimson aura continues pulsing strongly. Wow, thanks. I sit next to her on the bed and she startles a bit. I look toward the ceiling with a smile on my face. So I don't look like a monster anymore, right? She turns her neck to look at me more comfortably, and placing her hand on her thigh, she adopts a serious posture. Although I don't like it when people say Arita is a monster, somehow it always made me angry. But it's true you weren't normal. Can't deny that. What happened to you, Arita? I sigh heavily and decide to start from the beginning. Do you remember what I was like when you first met me? Saya nods and says, carefully choosing her words. You looked like a walking corpse, or at least someone very malnourished who hasn't eaten properly in months. I chuckle because she's considerably softened her words now compared to those first days. Haha, how kind you are now. When we met, I almost made you faint because I had grabbed your arm and pretended to be a zombie growling like an idiot. When Ray brought Saya to meet me. Those were good times. Well, not really, but at least it was fun to see her face of terror. For some time after that incident, she addressed me as that thing, or the ghoul boy, instead of using my name. She wasn't very subtle with her disgust. Shut up. Don't remind me of that. Anyway, have you ever wondered why I looked like that? Why I looked like the living dead? Saya is quite intelligent, so it would be extremely strange if she hadn't wondered at some point. It's also very possible she suspected something and reached a conclusion quite close to the truth. She lets out an indignant snort and, showing her cute fang that peeks between her pursed lips, says with a tone of obviousness. Of course I've wondered, do you think I'm an idiot? I always thought you were one of those ghouls that eat people, and that's why I kept away from you when we met. Having said that, she didn't ignore me like the other children or treat me as if I really were a monster. Pausing, Saya's expression softens a bit. But after several months living with you, and seeing how you act with Ray and me, I thought you didn't seem like a people-eating monster, and I started trusting you little by little. So I told myself that maybe you were just very sick, and that's why you look so horrible. I tell her with a smile. You were partly right. I was very sick. In fact, I wasn't alive. She looks at me confused, as if she hadn't understood what I just said. I prepare myself mentally. Should I really do this? Should I tell her the whole truth? But I can no longer hide it from her, especially now that my appearance has changed so drastically. So I must do it properly, carefully, so as not to scare her too much and have her run away screaming. Saya, do you know what a zombie is? What's with that weird question? Of course I know what they are, since we often watch those kinds of movies on Halloween. They're brainless walking dead that eat brains of living people. Silly movies. Ghouls and parasites may exist, but living corpses, that's impossible. I smile while watching her complain from the side. If she knew this world was originally a zombie apocalypse one. It's something like that. But it seems that in reality not all zombies are the same as in the movies, since some may be able to think or speak normally. Although so far I'm the only one who has intact consciousness and personality. While the zombie ghouls that vampires make when they bite humans have no will of their own, and are just puppets. Well, I myself can't be considered a normal zombie, much less now that I've repeatedly evolved beyond that classification. Saya adjusts her glasses on her nose, pushing them with her index finger, and narrowing her eyes suspiciously, asks cautiously. Why are we suddenly talking about zombies? What does this have to do with you? I stop and look directly into her crystalline eyes, and read the emotional frequencies emanating from her. She's confused, while also worried about me, and I can see and feel something deep and heavy in her emotions, something that makes my chest feel warm. After a second or two I open my mouth. Because I was born as one, Saya. Hearing what I just confessed, Saya stares at me without blinking even once while her lips open slightly in shock. I was born a zombie, even though my parents were normal humans. But as you surely imagine, when my biological parents saw their newborn baby with gray corpse skin and cloudy dead eyes, they were so scared they almost died of fright themselves and abandoned me. I say all that in one breath, and honestly I expected to see fear reflected in Saya's eyes, but it seems I completely underestimated this girl because I only see surprise in her expression and nothing more. She sighs and gives the impression of being a person who just solved a mystery that's been bothering her. So that's how it is. That explains a lot. You really were a real zombie, and not just a sick child. She shakes her head and, pausing briefly, bites her lip. But I suppose something else must have happened recently, right? You often changed. Whether it's how you behave when you touch my head, seeming very pleased, or when you come home being a bit taller, or with a bit more flesh and muscles. As expected of her. She always knew I wasn't normal. An intense look is directed at me from behind her glasses. Not to mention you're completely different now. So go ahead, continue the story. You're right. Since I was born a zombie, I had several parts of my body completely screwed up and not working properly. My brain was slowly rotting, so day by day I lost my memories. My blood barely circulated through my body as it should. I also couldn't feel normal things. Whether it was pain when someone hit me, or even the simple wind on my skin, or the sun's warmth. I couldn't feel all that because my nerves were dead. But all that has changed now because I was a zombie. Even though she's sitting in an upright position with her hands resting on her thighs, I see how she clenches her fists when she realizes the situation I've had to go through. While tears shine in her pupils without falling, she bites her lips, emitting frequencies of sadness. It was when she hears my final phrase. You were. So you're not anymore. She asks with hope shining intensely in her eyes. I can feel what she's thinking at this moment. Saya hoped with all her heart that I had become a normal, ordinary human again. Someone who could live a common life without supernatural worries. Sadly, that sweet hope is destined to be shattered to pieces as soon as I open my mouth to tell the truth. Yes, I'm no longer a zombie because I evolved several times by eating things that made me change. Saya's shoulders tremble slightly at those words and she says in a low voice. Evolving from a zombie to something else. That sounds amazing but also terrifying. She crosses her arms. What exactly have you become, Oni-chan? What are you now? And what do you mean by eating things? You can read 20 advanced chapters on my patreon.com/Owen Moriarty Chapter 69, Chapter 69 1458 words. This is yesterday's chapter which I wasn't able to upload. The other chapter will be uploaded in a few minutes. What exactly have you become, Oni-chan? What are you now? And what do you mean by eating things? Ha, look how you call me that now without being embarrassed. I mock her, pointing out the detail. You Rusai. Stop mentioning useless things and keep explaining, Baka. She pinches my arm hard, and unable to help it, I laugh out loud, receiving a cold look from her. Okay. Basically I can evolve by eating the supernatural. Eating the supernatural. Don't tell me. Her eyes open enormously. You've eaten a ghoul. She realizes that almost immediately, and I confirm by nodding. A ghoul was my first prey. That bastard tried to eat me first, so I just returned the favor. She goes pale as a sheet of paper, and says with a trembling voice. If a ghoul was your first prey, then... I nod again. Then came parasites, exactly. While she looks at me astonished with her mouth half open, the fingers of my right hand suddenly transform into sharp blades, making her jump on the bed and point at me while stuttering. You. I can feel her emotional frequencies stumbling over each other, creating chaos in my perception. Whether disbelief or confusion, they all mix together. There's also fear growing. Are you really not a parasite? Are you sure? Like my father. I hide my blade fingers, transforming them back to normal, and sigh while shaking my head. I'm not a parasite, Saya. I only absorbed their supernatural characteristics, in this case being able to use these blade fingers when I need them. I don't have my brain or head eaten and manipulated by a parasitic alien. In fact, it doesn't affect me in the slightest that way. I don't explain that my physical strength had increased exponentially because of it, or that I gained the ability to perceive emotions as frequencies. Saya sighs with relief, and I can see how the fear that the boy in front of her was being controlled by a parasite vanishes. Realizing something, she asks with a calmer voice, but at the same time cautious. That night you ate my father. That sound weird. Speaking of it, there's a deep sadness in her eyes, remembering her father who was possessed by a parasite. It was an event that made Saya's worldview change completely forever. I look at her a bit surprised and ask. You already knew? That it was me who arrived that night to save you, and she lets out an indignant snort crossing her arms. Of course I know, I'm not stupid. That night, in the darkness, I couldn't distinguish the figure's features well, but it was small, about the size of a child. Besides, it moved incredibly fast for an adult and could go through walls without problems, something a human couldn't do. It was very difficult for anyone to guess it was you, Arita. She pauses. But I'd already suspected for a long time that you had secrets you weren't telling either me or Ray. That's why, and because I knew you were the only one who would come help me without hesitation, I knew it was you. I never really showed that I knew, since I thought you might have some important reason why you want to hide, and I didn't want to unnecessarily complicate things for you by making Oka-san and Ray know too. I scratch my cheek, feeling a bit embarrassed by her consideration. I apologize for killing your father, although I didn't eat him, of course. Saya lets out a long sigh while shaking her head, making her twin tails sway from side to side. Forget it. That thing, the moment it consumed my father's head and brain, killing him in the process, stopped being my father. It was just a monster using his body as a disguise. Then she says with a softer voice. I'd never properly thanked you for saving us, so thank you for saving me and Oka-san that night. It's nothing, really. She seems to suddenly become embarrassed. Lowering her face so I wouldn't see her expression, despite her ear being completely visible and red from embarrassment, she apologizes. I apologize for that day. For that day? What is this girl suddenly referring to? Saya emits a sound of embarrassment before continuing with difficulty. The time I brought Ray with me behind you, and we discovered where you lived in that abandoned building. Ah, so that day. The memory comes to mind. She continues with a rushed voice. Back then, I was already very aware you weren't a normal human. I thought you were a ghoul. I couldn't stand the mystery anymore, so I wanted you to know I already knew, and that you didn't need to hide from me anymore because I trusted you wouldn't hurt me. I even tricked Ray into going with me using silly excuses, but I was an idiot for that. I should have gone alone without involving her. Saying all that in one go, for a proud tsundere like her it must be extremely difficult to admit her mistakes. It seems if I mock her right now, she'll flee embarrassed from the room, and probably won't talk to me for a week, so I refrain from doing so. Instead, I smile warmly and put my hand on her head. While gently stroking her silky hair, I see her emotions calm down more. I take that as a sign that everything's fine and start talking. I don't blame you for that, Saya. Although I'm surprised by your intention. The intention to surprise me with my own secret, and let me know she already knew but didn't reject me for it. I look at my past self mentally, and think I was a complete fool. In those times I was often in constant panic, wondering what would happen if Saya or Ray discovered I wasn't human, when in reality one of them already knew for a long time. I just need to paint my face in pastel colors and put on a ridiculous wig to be a complete clown, because I was already acting in a damn circus. I shake my head, shaking off those thoughts, and ask. Doesn't it bother you that I'm a monster and not a human? She slaps my hand that was stroking her hair away, and fixing her messy hair with her fingers, lets out a snort. I never thought I'd say something like this in my life, but... Sitting on the edge of the bed, she turns completely toward me. Extending her slender arm, she puts her hand on my chest, right where my heart beats. Now for me, in a world where monsters really exist, humanity isn't in biology, but in the heart. I'm frozen for a few seconds before laughing out loud. That was super cheesy, Saya. She slaps me repeatedly with her twin tails, using them as whips. I thank her sincerely. It's good you knew it, idiot. If it were another girl, and not me, Takagi Saya, she surely would have already reported you to the authorities or the CCG. What you say is true. I don't doubt that for a second. It's because Saya has been with me too long that she doesn't fear me, and instead trusts me even when she knows I'm a monster that devours other monsters. There's also Ray in that category. However, Saya and Ray's personalities are very different from each other. Saya is analytical and knows how to reach a logical conclusion calmly using her brain. It seems this was reinforced by having lost her father, and she tends to use her brain more to defend herself. Ray, on the other hand, is emotional and temperamental, making it much more difficult to reveal the truth to her without her making some fuss. Saya pulls my ear. Why do you only dare to reveal the truth now and not before? She must know very well the answer to that question. Still, I respond. Apart from being afraid you'd see me as a monster and run away, and as a consequence lose you forever, there's also another more important reason. I look into her eyes to create a serious atmosphere. The truth in a world like ours can be considered a gift that illuminates ignorance, or a heavy burden that takes you straight to the grave. That's the consequence of knowing too much. You can read 20 advanced chapters on my patreon.com/Olwen Moriarty Chapter 70, Chapter 70 1675 words. Saya nods. I know, you don't have to remind me of something so simple. I know it's dangerous to know these things. But honestly, I don't care. You don't care? She shakes her head firmly. Because it's you, Arita. And because you've already saved me before risking your life, and that's why I feel safe by your side no matter what you are. Saying all that in one go, she stops abruptly and her cheeks turn red. Anyway, since you've come this far revealing to me what you really are you afraid? She changes the subject quickly and continues saying. I don't know much about the monsters that exist, and apart from the parasite that killed my father I haven't seen others directly. I don't know to what extent they're actually dangerous. I'm not worried about myself but about you, Saya, and the others who are close to me. I can defend myself easily but you currently can't. Saya lets out a snort and with a serious face, seems about to scold me. If you think I or Oka-san are in danger because of you, and therefore think about escaping from here, and hiding so as not to involve us, then I'll never forgive you. I laugh at her amused while shrugging. I won't lie. At first I was thinking of escaping. But now that I've come this far revealing all this to you, and seeing that you accept me as I am, then there's no need to flee anywhere. I just need to be alert and protect you all too, isn't that right? Now I'm a vampire. I don't know the full extent of my powers, because I need exhaustive training sessions to familiarize myself with all the power I have and explore my full potential. Even so, I have several methods to defend myself. I'm even sure I can keep the people who are close to me safe, with the all-seeing eye being just one of the methods. It was for that security that I started revealing the truth to Saya. At that moment, I can feel Saya's emotional frequencies swirling. She seems quite happy with my response. She may be happy, but she still lets out a snort. So you were thinking of escaping like a coward? She gives me a contemptuous look before saying. You still haven't told everything, especially why you're so changed today. So I sigh and start telling her the whole story from the beginning. About my first encounter with that bastard ghoul who wanted to eat me, about how I discovered I could devour other supernatural beings to constantly evolve. I speak slowly while carefully observing her reactions, sometimes pausing when I see her fear increasing, and explaining in more detail when I see she's confused about something. Of course, I don't tell her about my death and reincarnation in this world from another different world. I only focus on making her understand what I am, and that despite what I am and what I've done to survive, at the end of the day those actions are what define me, and that I'm still the same Arita who saved her, who played with her and who constantly teases her. After talking for a good while, there's silence in the room. A little over 2 minutes after assimilating all the information, Saya speaks. So when you disappeared all those days supposedly going to Tuka's house, you were hunting ghouls in the 24th ward. She seems to be in emotional conflict knowing that. She emits fluctuations of happiness mixed with sadness. I assume the happiness is linked to knowing I had previously shamelessly lied about visiting Tuka every day. And she's also sad because I was facing extremely dangerous situations in solo mode in an underground district full of crazy monsters that could kill me. I needed to get stronger quickly to protect you and the others. And then, it was also in that place I found something much more powerful than a ghoul or a parasite. I pause and seeing Saya urging me with her eyes, I continue. It's a vampire, and I devoured it after a life or death battle. In the end, we both died. But she doesn't have to know that. A vampire? Saya's eyes open enormously, while she asks with disbelief. There are also vampires in this world. Nodding, I open my mouth to show my sharp fangs. I see. Vampires need to suck blood to survive, right? You are a vampire. Saya looks away from me while asking that, and for some reason touches her neck with her fingers while blushing intensely. It's quite adorable. I smile maliciously when I notice her so uncomfortable. With my head tilted, I slowly lean toward her. Her breathing becomes agitated and her crimson aura writhes, making it look like a whirlwind. My own smile widens as I stare into her eyes. Why do you ask, Saya? Are you offering yourself? Do you realize I could suck your blood? Are you afraid? Don't be silly. Who would be afraid of you? And offering what exactly? You perverted bloodsucker. She keeps looking away with her face as red as her aura. Perverted bloodsucker. Heh, sounds cool to me. That title. I move closer until my mouth is right next to her ear and whisper. And it's very true. I'm very hungry, Saya. Saya snorts indignantly and hits me repeatedly with her twin tail attack. My laughter resonates in the room, mixing with her sounds of urusai and her small cries of frustration. Sometime after calming down, Saya sighs deeply and asks with a serious voice. Will you ever hurt me, Rei or Okasan? I've killed 2 humans so far, it's true. One was a CCG agent who was hunting me, and another was a disgusting pervert who went after little girls. But I won't touch innocent people unless they come after me first, much less will I harm people close to me under any circumstances. So it was you. Saya says that connecting the dots and then adds. Some time ago it came out in the news about the CCG agent brutally killed, and it's said to be the work of a dangerous S-class ghoul. Don't CCG people protect humans from ghouls? You killed him. That may be so in theory, and that man may have been innocent in his normal life. But he's an innocent who wanted to kill me, so I had to defend myself. If I left him alive, they would eventually discover me and probably the people I know, involving them in unnecessary danger. With my memories from the manga, I know that CCG people, or at least the high command and bosses, aren't really someone worthy of admiration or respect. Saya says quickly. I'm not blaming you for defending yourself, not at all. It's just a bit shocking to hear it directly. Forget it. Sighing, she continues. In the news it was revealed that many CCG agents will come to the 20th ward looking for this mysterious ghoul, or you in this case. You have to be very careful, okay? In fact, you shouldn't even think about doing something stupid during these days. Stay still. Hee, of course I'll be careful. She asks with a hesitant voice. As for humans, you don't eat their flesh, right? Their flesh is disgusting. But I do eat their hearts, which are delicious. At least before, when I was a ghoul. Now that I'm a vampire, human hearts no longer seem as attractive to me as before. Saya shows relief on her face. That's good at least. It's better that way than trying to be a stupid hero. She looks at me seriously. And you must never try to be a hero who saves everyone, understood? My lips purse. I'm not trying to be a hero. At what point does a hero enjoy killing his enemies and devouring them to evolve? I laugh at the idea of being a hero, and we stay like that for a few long minutes in silence. It's Saya who once again breaks the silence. That's enough drama for today. I hate the emotional dramas my Okasan watches. I nod in agreement. It's late. You should go to sleep, Saya. Saya looks at me sideways and says while stuttering. It's already past midnight. If I go to my room now, I'll wake Oka-san with the noise. I'll sleep here with you. She snorts, seeing my surprised reaction. Don't think anything weird, idiot. I'm just afraid Oka-san will scold me for being up so late, okay? It's not because I wanted to sleep with you or anything like that. Is it because Saya is still young? Her tsundere mode isn't very sharp yet. Her excuses are still very green and transparent, and I can easily tell she's just trying not to separate from me tonight. I say with a warm smile. Thank you for accepting me. Saya's cheeks turn completely red, and she quickly lies down on the bed before hiding under the sheets like a scared rabbit. Her muffled voice is heard from below. I already told you it's not a big deal, fool. Now shut up and sleep already. I let myself fall onto the bed beside her and look at the ceiling. Saya accepted me, huh? Despite everything horrible I told her about myself. I feel a wave of relief flooding me completely, and at that moment I realize I'm genuinely happy. At some point I'll have to talk to Ray too about all this, and eventually with Mrs. That's going to be complicated, especially with Ray. But for now, I close my eyes and in a short time, I fall asleep with a great weight lifting from my shoulders. If you liked this, throw me your power stones. At 100 power stones, I'll drop a bonus chapter. Chapter 71, Chapter 71. 1099 words. A girl with long purple hair is locked inside a dark cell. She's sitting on the cold concrete floor with her legs crossed, and her chin resting on her hands while observing the steel door. She has on her face what can only be described as a completely bored expression. Rise Washu. That's the name of the purple-haired girl. She's approximately 12 years old according to her own calculations. Although in that horrible windowless place, where she doesn't know when it's day or when it's night, it's extremely difficult to know the exact time, so she can hardly be sure of anything related to the passage of time. She'd been caged here since she was a small child, and was fed human flesh of varying quality depending on the mood of the owners of this place. Sometimes the meat was delicious and tender, and other times it tasted horribly bad. Sometimes there were weeks when she didn't even eat. She was also brutally trained every day to the point where she often thinks she's a living weapon being forged. According to them, she's valuable material that must be perfected. Anyway, it's not that it bothers her too much. She's used to it more than anything. If she's honest with herself, there's one thing that really bothers her deeply, and it's the constant boredom. How boring. She sighs while stretching her arm above her head and relaxing her legs forward. She looks like a cat seeking a comfortable position after lying in the same spot for too long without moving. It's at that precise moment, the air in front of her suddenly bulges and explodes with a pop. From there a crimson flash breaks through. The thing that emerges slowly approaches, floating toward her. Faced with this strange scene, Rise isn't frightened or shows an expression of surprise, which suggests this isn't the first time something like this has happened. Her lips curve into a smile that can't be fake, and it's actually the first expression of real happiness on her face all day. Yuki-chan. You've finally come back. What's floating before her isn't something one would call pleasant to look at, but something a bit disturbing and strange. It's the size of an adult's fist, with a round and perfectly spherical shape, and mostly white, being similar to a scara, and in the center there's a bright crimson iris staring fixedly at Rise. The eye blinks slowly at Rise's greeting, something she had learned to interpret as a way this mysterious eye shows affection toward her. In fact, that's the name she had given it a week ago, when this eye first appeared in her cell. At first Rise thought it was a hallucination caused by her loneliness, which wouldn't be strange considering she spends her days completely alone in a cold cell. At one point or another, even if she's a girl who constantly has twisted and dark thoughts, she would wish to have some kind of company. However, the eye turned out not only to not be a product of her hallucination by proving to her it's real, but it also moves all day around her to faithfully accompany her, only disappearing a few times a day before returning to her side. It had also helped her several times, but she doesn't know this yet. Rise extends her hand with her palm facing up, and the eye happily floated toward her. As it moves through the air, the eye reduced its size from the size of an adult's fist to the size of a small marble. It descends gently until resting on her open palm. It reminds Rise of a bird returning to its nest after a long day of flying. Did you go explore outside again? Tell me. Did you see anything interesting today? The eye's eyelids close to blink once, which is a bit visually strange, but she assumes that means a yes. Hee hee, how envious. I also want to leave this horrible cage someday. She gently places her index finger on the eye and strokes it like one strokes the head of a purring cat. Don't you think so too, Yuki-chan? This is such a small and suffocating cage. It's like being a caged bird. I wonder if I leave here, will I be free, or will I find a slightly bigger cage? This floating eye is probably the only real company she's had since she was born, with the sole predetermined role of being a valuable product for her family. She says with contempt in her voice. Yuki-chan is much better company than those idiots outside. Rise has been wondering if this little eye might actually have a brain somewhere, because sometimes it seems to understand her perfectly. Like now, when the eye rises from her hand, and does a little flip in the air. Rise emits sounds of happy laughter at that, but then she hears footsteps approaching through the outer hallway. Her smile instantly twists into a dark and dangerous smile, and her eyes shine threateningly. Oh, it seems the guard dogs are coming to bother me again. She stood up lazily while the eye floats until positioning itself above her right shoulder, which is different from previous times when it would hide. This made Rise panic. Yuki-chan. Go hide behind me right now. If the guard dogs discover you, they'll separate you from me. The eye instead remains stubbornly above her shoulder without moving a millimeter. The eye seems to say, watch me ignore you. Rise. Rise can't believe it. She tries to grab it desperately with her hands, but the eye easily passes through the gaps between her fingers and settles triumphantly on her head. Rise starts sweating nervously and biting her lower lip with anxiety. This is bad, really bad. She doesn't want to lose her only pet and company in this hell. Valuable objects like her shouldn't have anyone close. They shouldn't interact with anyone, shouldn't have friends, shouldn't have emotions toward anyone. Because that supposedly would reduce her value as a weapon. That's why, when the guards see her with a pet, they'll take it away without hesitation and she'll be severely punished. But she doesn't have much time to think of solutions. She doesn't manage to hide the eye in time. The steel door opens with a horrible screech that's extremely unpleasant. While she's in panic, 2 guards enter the cell. If you liked this, throw me your power stones. At 100 power stones, I'll drop a bonus chapter. Chapter 72, Chapter 72, Bonus Chapter 15, 08 words. We've reached 100 power stones. Thank you so much. Here's the bonus chapter. At 200 power stones, I'll drop another bonus chapter. The ones who entered are intimidating men. One the size of a bear with a completely bald head that shines, and the other a hunched old man with a wrinkled and unhappy face. Both have severe and threatening expressions, and in their hands are electric batons that crackle. The bald bear looks at her annoyed and says with a deep voice. Subject 15. Wash your Rise, it's time for your training. Rise sighs a bit, trying to relax and calm her nerves. It seems the eye hasn't been seen by them yet, which is good. The eye's size is quite small and could go unnoticed on top of her long hair, unless one happened to place their eye on that spot. She brings a finger to her lips and smiling sweetly with innocence, says, Training? It's quite boring to always do the same thing. Why do you have to train me today too? She strokes her chin while pretending to have a thoughtful and curious expression. I'll be obedient for training if you take me out of here, and bring me outside to the surface to play for a while, hee hee. The hunched and wrinkled old man raises his electric baton, and strikes it over and over against his own palm in a threatening gesture. Stop playing with us and be obedient at once. The other products have already been gathered in the training area, and you're the only one missing. TSK, boring. She moves toward them with an expressionless and empty face. It was also at that moment that the bear without hair on his head suddenly becomes alarmed and looks at Rise's head, specifically a part of her hair, and says loudly, "What is that thing on your head?" Rise freezes completely in place, and then sighs with resignation while thinking, in the end Yuki-chan has been seen, what a shame. The old man is also surprised. Is it an eye? Has Subject 15 torn out someone's eyes? It's an eye that's still moving. When she's about to say something sarcastic to mock the two men, she feels something strange happening. It's an invisible presence extending from Yuki-chan, who's on top of her head. That frequency expands like waves in a calm pond that was struck by a stone. She can't see that frequency with her eyes, but it could be considered a quite strong frequency because she can feel it against her skin. The two guards approach Rise to snatch that eye. But the moment they look at the crimson pupils of the eye, the two men stop, and their bodies freeze like statues. Their severe expressions quickly change, and all emotion melts from their faces until leaving flat and blank expressions. Go back where you came from and forget what you saw here. Rise hears a masculine voice saying those words with authority. It's a voice that came out through the eye above her. Yuki-chan can talk. But in all this time they've known each other. Why is this the first time Yuki-chan speaks? She turns her head quickly knowing the eye spoke to the guards, and sees that both men blink before turning around like puppets on strings, and walking toward the door. The masculine voice once again sounds from the eye. If anyone asks why you're not taking her, put a reasonable excuse so they don't suspect. The guards nod before closing the steel door and returning down the concrete hallway. Rise stays still for a long moment while processing what she just witnessed. She quickly grabs the eye with both hands and puts it in front of her face. Yuki-chan, was it you who made those dogs obey you? You know how to talk. Faced with this excited Rise, the eye blinks twice in succession, which generally means to her something like more or less. She puts on an unhappy face. Hey, Yuki-chan, you can talk, right? Why don't you talk now like before? The eye looks at her innocently but doesn't speak again, or emit any sound, even after 5 entire minutes where Rise doesn't stop asking in different ways the same thing about why Yuki-chan doesn't talk now. But what you did was very interesting. She looks at Yuki-chan with shining eyes. She realizes there are many things she doesn't understand about her own pet. That's wrong, very wrong. She must completely understand everything about her pet, only then can she be a good owner, right? She remembers what's happened since a week ago when Yuki-chan appeared. Generally her training was intense and extremely bloody. Apart from being trained to increase her speed and strength using her Kagun, they beat her mercilessly to increase her pain resistance to inhuman levels. They made her starve for entire days, and exposed her to normal human food as a test every day. It's truly a painful punishment for a ghoul. Having to endure intense hunger for human flesh, and instead giving her human food, which is no different from making her drink poison directly. They force her to kill to sharpen her ability to kill without hesitation. They force her to resist murder attempts from other children to know how to survive. But it's not just her who's subjected to this type of hellish training, since the other children also go through something similar. But without doubt Rise is the only one whose difficulty is far superior to the others. After experiencing the same thing all these years, she was already used to those hellish treatments. However, since Yuki-chan appeared, every time she trained the trainers no longer beat her until all her bones were broken, and then had to slowly regenerate, nor did they force her to eat human food or make her starve. She's also not forced to participate in the free-for-all fights, a brutal confrontation of children in which she also often participated, where only the strongest survive and the rest die. Realizing this preferential treatment was probably due to Yuki-chan, Rise's eyes shine, while looking at the floating eye with something like adoration. It was Yuki-chan. This feeling is so pleasant. Not knowing that warm emotion is gratitude, she laughs while patting the eye that returned to fist size. You're not an ordinary floating eye, are you? You don't look like any animal I know. Let's see, maybe there's someone controlling you from somewhere else. Yuki-chan seems to shudder and start sweating nervously. Of course, all that is only imaginary by the way the eye behaves. Seeing this, Rise's lips stretch into a dangerous smile. Then I'm right. I wonder who you really are, Yuki-chan. Or rather, who is your true owner? Yuki-chan narrows its eyelids with what seems to be annoyance, before in a quick flash it moved through the air at great speed, and crashed directly against Rise's forehead. That hurt a bit. Rubbing her forehead with one hand, she takes the eye carefully and puts it on her lap. So Yuki-chan has special powers besides being able to float around. While stroking Yuki-chan gently as if it were a fat, round cat, she says, "What else can you do? Show me, show me." The eye blinks and then rises from her lap floating. Something extraordinary happens. The eye closes its eyelids slowly and falls to the floor as if sleeping deeply. Rise laughs out loud. It's incredible. A truly unique and useful superpower. Hearing Rise's voice, Yuki-chan rises from the floor and seems incredibly proud of itself. Rise cups her hands forming a small nest, and the eye reducing its size descends to rest there. Whoever is controlling Yuki-chan must be someone extraordinary and powerful. I wonder if they're also a ghoul like me. Rise's eyes emit a dangerous and possessive glow, making Yuki-chan shudder. Someday I want to meet them personally. A twisted and obsessive smile forms on her face. Rise lies down on the hard bed in the prison and closes her eyes. Yuki-chan, if someday I find a way to get out of here, will you come with me? So we can explore the world together, eat delicious human flesh, and meet your creator. She opens one eye to look at the small crimson eye floating around the cell. What do you think of this idea? Cool, isn't it? I'm so excited just thinking about it. The eye stops in front of her face, before starting to emit a wave of frequencies. Then the masculine voice is heard again, saying, "It's fine." Rise startles. You spoke again. You didn't go mute. Perfect, then that's a promise between us. Her eyes shine with possessiveness while holding the eye. Yuki-chan is mine, and its owner will also be mine eventually. You can read 20 advanced chapters on my P at triancom/Olwen Moriarty. Chapter 73, Chapter 73 1189 words Yuki-chan is mine, and its owner will also be mine eventually. I hear those words through my all-seeing eye and feel my skin get goosebumps immediately. Another crazy one. I mutter while rubbing my face with both hands. That girl definitely has some loose screws in her head, and it's not just one or two. The obsessive gleam in her eyes when she said that was quite terrifying, honestly. She's declaring she'll turn me into her personal possession. But well, it's not like I can completely blame her for developing that type of personality. She's been locked in that cell since she was a child, being treated like a valuable object instead of a person. It's natural she'd develop a twisted and obsessive personality when the only affection she receives is from a floating eye. Still, for now it seems she's better than her version in the original manga where she was a complete psychopath. My original intention in having my all-seeing eye accompany Rise was because I wanted to spy on her to better understand the Washa clan and their operations, since eventually I'll have to deal with them if I want to survive in peace with my loved ones in this world. But now that I've been observing her for an entire week, I realize I also feel something like pity for her. A girl locked up, starved, brutally beaten and trained as a living weapon. It's fucking sad when I think of it that way. That's why I decided to use my mental manipulation ability through the eye to help her a bit. By manipulating the trainer's minds with simple commands, I made the intensity of her training drop from hell mode to normal mode. Speaking of which, I'd finally found the method to make an ability work through the all-seeing eyes after much experimentation. Mental manipulation being the most accessible, but still only managing it after several days of practice. Basically, I need to concentrate the mental frequencies I emit from my brain and channel them through the eye, projecting them directly toward the target. However, there are important limitations, of course. First, the mental manipulation effect is significantly weaker when I use it through the eye instead of doing it directly with my physical presence. To give an example, it would be like the difference between shouting in person versus shouting through a phone with poor signal. Second, and more important, mental manipulation simply doesn't work on beings with strong wills or high mental resistance. If I tried using this against someone like Mrs. Kiriko, or against a powerful S-class ghoul, it would probably fail. Third, I need the target to look directly at the eye for it to work properly. If there's no eye contact, the frequencies can't penetrate their mind. And fourth, I can only give simple and direct orders. Still, it's quite useful for situations like rises. Of course, all this is only possible thanks to having evolved into a vampire, and now my mind is much more powerful than before. If I were my previous self with a half-rotten brain, I could never achieve it. Because mental manipulation through the all-seeing eye now is stronger than the mental manipulation I could achieve in the past when I saved Ray from that ghoul. I suppose I'll keep helping Rise a bit more. I say that out loud while maintaining a part of my consciousness to observe through that eye this possessive crazy girl called Yuki-chan. The moment I completely cut the connection, her Yuki-chan would disappear. I have 15 other eyes floating all over the city anyway, so it's not like I'm losing surveillance capacity. By the way, it's now a week after revealing I'm a monster to Saya. Since a week has passed, now it's my first official day of school. Yuriko brought Saya and me to school in her car this morning early. Honestly, I thought I'd be nervous or something, considering how I was in my school in my past life. A relatively normal kid who tried to fit in without drawing much attention. However, is it because they're all small children now? I don't care about them at all. In fact, I find them quite annoying with their shrill screams and noisy games. So I simply hang out with Saya and Ray at school, completely ignoring the other children who look at me with curiosity for being the new kid. Fortunately now my appearance looks like a normal human's, and not like a gray-skinned monster's. Who knows what would have happened then? It's a quiet and normal life. It's a life I thought I wouldn't manage to experience being a zombie that evolves into a hybrid monster. However, why am I not happy with this? It's because I've fundamentally changed. Somewhere in my consciousness, I'm already accustomed to danger and adrenaline. Moreover, I know this world will at some point be destroyed by those vampires and their zombie ghouls in the apocalypse. Apparently I'm in a peaceful zone now, but it's only the superficial appearance. Somewhere there are dark machinations to bring this world to chaos. Knowing that, even living as the past Erida desired, the current Erida isn't at peace. The Sunday of the next week I leave the Takagi mansion with the intention of visiting Tuka, since I haven't visited her in the last few weeks due to being busy adapting to school, and training my new vampire powers in secret. I feel a bit bad for having ignored her so long. I walk through the quiet streets on Sunday morning. It might sound contradictory coming from a vampire, but I really enjoy the warm sun on my skin. Being a vampire who can walk under the sun without turning into sparkling dust is great, I'm not going to lie. I'm halfway to Tuka's house when I see a familiar figure walking in the opposite direction. A young woman with long blonde hair tied in a ponytail, wearing a white blouse that shows her generous curves in the part of her enormous breasts, and jeans that show the shape of her huge and well-formed butt. My eyes open slightly with surprise. It's Miss Marikawa. From time to time I used to stop by her house to receive some clothes when I was a zombie child living alone. Of course, I no longer need it since I now live with Saya and Yuriko, a family that could be considered tremendously wealthy. Still, remembering that I was the only child who regularly visited Miss Marikawa, which somehow she thought was atoning for her mother's sins, I visit her from time to time. But I haven't seen her since the middle of my incursions into the 24th ward. She walks distractedly while looking at her phone without paying attention to her surroundings. When we're about to pass each other, she looks up and sees me, however she passes by as if I were a stranger. If you liked this, throw me your power stones. At 100 power stones, I'll drop a bonus chapter. Chapter 74, Chapter 74. 1649 words she doesn't recognize me. Makes sense. My appearance changed after evolving into a vampire. After seeing her stop abruptly a few meters away, she slowly turns toward me. Her brown eyes narrow with suspicion as she looks at me. Wait a moment. Arada-chan. She asks that while tilting her head to one side, making her bangs slide over the smooth skin of her face. Ah, so she's still capable of recognizing me despite the change. I wonder how she did it. Still, I smile and nod before greeting. Hello, Miss Marikawa. It's been a while. She walks quickly toward me with hurried steps. Normally she has a sleepy and relaxed expression, but this time her lazy eyes are wide open to express her shock. Arriving in front of me, she crouches down a bit to be at my height. She opens her lips painted with natural lipstick with astonishment. I can't believe it. Is it really Arada-chan? You look completely different now. She examines me from my head to my feet. What happened for your hair, your skin, and your eyes to change so much? What happened to you? Then she narrows her gaze with suspicion. Or are you someone else pretending to be Arada-chan? I scratch my cheek while feeling uncomfortable under her intense inquisitive gaze. Don't worry, Miss Marikawa. The Arada before you is the Arada you know. It's just that some things have happened. For example, I had a special medical treatment that finally cured my illness. So now I don't look like a sick child anymore. Well, devouring a vampire could be considered a very effective medical treatment. She blinks several times before showing an embarrassed smile. I couldn't help you back then. I'm currently studying at university to be a nurse, but I still didn't know what kind of illness you had exactly. Forgive this Wani-chan for her inability. I shake my head with a smile while using all my superhuman mental control so my eyes aren't magnetically attracted to the two huge boobs that are practically in front of my face due to her leaning toward me. I don't blame you at all. Instead, I thank you for having helped me all this time, and for having worried about me. I remember she wanted to take me to a hospital to help me with her money. However, I feared that if I went to the hospital, they'd discover I wasn't human, so I refused categorically. Showing this type of goodwill toward me made me have deep gratitude toward her. It's hard to find a person with such a gentle heart as hers in this world. It seems there's still a long way to go to be a good nurse. She clenches her fists and looks with determination at the sky. All right, I'll study hard to reach the necessary level to cure everyone. By the way, Miss Marikawa seems to be only about 20 years old. She's still in her university study phase. I think when the apocalypse began in the anime, she seemed to be about 27 years old. Still, even being several years younger than in the anime, she still looks very mature due to her voluptuous body. While I think that trying not to look where I shouldn't, Miss Marikawa smiles widely. It's wonderful that Arada-chan is already cured. I'm very happy for you. I always worried about your situation. Saying those words while I see through her frequencies that she's very happy, she stands up and brings a finger to her lips thoughtfully. You were already cute before, but now you look really handsome. When you grow up you're guaranteed to break many hearts. I laugh out loud at her words. Haha, thank you. And Miss Marikawa is also as beautiful as always. She brings a hand to her blushing cheek. Era, how sweet you are. I must be careful it's not my heart that breaks. While she jokes that way, I express my curiosity. I'm surprised you recognized me when I changed so much. Saya knew me well, so she could tell it was me despite being changed. The same can be said of Rei, although that girl was quite surprised by my physical change when she visited Saya's house. Remembering she immediately accepted my change without questioning it much, I don't know if she's a bit dumb or very naive. Still, that helped not having to reveal to her yet that I'm a vampire. Miss Marikawa emits a sound of embarrassment. It's embarrassing to admit. But it's because of Arada-chan's scent. Because of my scent. Shizuka says with her cheeks painted pink. Others don't have particular scents, but Arita-chan does. Despite not using perfumes, you smell very good. It's impossible to confuse that unique scent. That's why, when I passed by you, I knew Arita-chan was near. And you were the only one there at that moment, so I knew it was you. While she explains that with her cheeks painted a light pink which makes her cute, I think that's bad. Is Miss Marikawa a ghoul or a vampire? While I'm sweating inside, I discreetly activate an ability to check. The world changes color to black and white instantly. Previously it was called ghoul vision, but now I call it vampire vision. Because the ability has evolved significantly. It's almost always active, except when I deactivate it because it consumes mental energy. Although keeping it active is a good training method, almost depleting my mental energy and then recharging it. That way, my mental strength increases little by little. In this state, I can see people's emotions in the form of colored auras. Last time when I saw Saya's overflowing feelings toward me, it was also because of this ability. Ghoul vision that has mutated, merging with the mental frequencies that allowed me to feel emotions granted to me by the parasite, and with a vampire's mental strength. Best of all is that the training from when I used my ghoul vision to not activate my Kakugan and enter ghoul mode had paid off. Because thanks to that training, it's much easier for me to keep this ability active without entering my vampire mode, an evolution of my ghoul mode. While I'm a bit anxious to know if Miss Marikawa is a supernatural being, in that black and white world I see two layers of aura surrounding her. The upper layer represents the current emotion, and the lower layer is the affection one feels toward me. Miss Shizuka's upper layer is light pink, which represents shyness and embarrassment. If the upper layer were bright yellow, then it would be happiness, if it were dark blue it would be sadness, and so on. Miss Marikawa's lower layer is warm yellow. That means she feels fondness for me. Rei's lower layer color is warm red, which represents deep love. But that doesn't compare to Saya's crimson. What the hell does that mean? Is Saya actually a Yandere inside and Sundara on the outside? Getting those thoughts out of my head, I focus my vision on Miss Marikawa's body, going through her skin, and I see her heart, her veins, and her blood flowing. She's a completely normal human. That's a relief. I was afraid this beautiful miss was secretly after my flesh or blood. Still, it seems not only supernatural beings are sensitive to my scent. Or is it because Miss Marikawa's nose is very sensitive that she can smell my scent? That might explain it. She asks with curiosity. Where are you going so early on a Sunday? I'm going to visit my friend's house that's near here. Oh, how cute. I'm going to the cafe for breakfast. I stop looking inside Miss Marikawa because it's disturbing, and I stay with her normal appearance where only the two aura layers are seen. The auras aren't so visually intense, so they don't bother or obstruct seeing the person they surround. Then the upper aura that had already returned to being white, which means calm, is instantly tinged with pink. She says embarrassed. Don't think this Wani-chan doesn't know how to cook, okay? I know how to cook very well. It's just that the cafe here serves coffee that's too delicious, plus I'm tired from studying. I smile bitterly. There's no need to explain so much. I understand perfectly. You don't understand at all. She puffs her cheeks while gently hitting my nose with her finger. She changes the subject and asks me. How's school going? It's going quite well, although it's boring. Miss Marikawa crosses her arms under her huge tits, while shaking her head. No, Arita-chan shouldn't think that way. Studying is important and you must pay attention in classes, okay? Can you promise that to Wani-chan? Ugh, okay. Good boy. She strokes my hair affectionately. I'm glad it's going well for you. Then I must go. But it was very nice to see you again, Arita-chan. Take care of yourself, okay? And don't forget to visit your Wani-chan often. I will. Take care too, Miss Marikawa. She gives me a refreshing smile while waving her hand and walking away. It's an unexpected but quite pleasant encounter. I turn around and continue walking through the streets while thinking about what I'll tell Tuka when I see her. She'll probably be angry with me for not visiting her in so long, right? At that moment I still don't know. That while I walk with a furrowed brow, preparing my lies for the fury that undoubtedly awaits me, Tuka's house isn't safe. It's not safe at all. My small world that I so long to protect is already beginning to crumble. If you liked this, throw me your power stones. At 100 power stones, I'll drop a bonus chapter. Chapter 75, Chapter 75, Bonus Chapter 15, 03 words we've reached 200 power stones. Thank you so much. Here's the bonus chapter. At 350 power stones, I'll drop another bonus chapter. Tuka is sitting on the sofa in her first floor living room. With her arms crossed and staring at the front door, it seems she's very upset. That big idiot. She mutters while looking away toward the window where the morning sun enters and illuminates the floating dust particles. How many days has it been already? Since the last time that idiot Arita came to visit her. No, in fact, it's entire weeks without her seeing that annoying boy appear, who has an irritating smile, barging into her house without asking permission and starting to talk about random things while playing video games with her. Tuka stands up abruptly and walks to the kitchen to distract herself. It's not like I care anyway. Saying those words out loud, she opens the refrigerator and looks at its contents. There are fruits, vegetables and pork. As a ghoul, she certainly can't eat them, however, since she has a human friend, she had them in the refrigerator in case she visited and she wouldn't seem suspicious. Despite saying she didn't care, in her consciousness, she knows perfectly well those words aren't true. It's strange that annoying person who almost every day appeared at her door sometimes bringing new games, suddenly no longer came. Did he dare disappear without any explanation? What if something bad happened to him? While her train of thought headed toward dangerous territory, and that she wouldn't like to be true, she shakes her head. He's probably busy with that rich pink-haired girl. She puts coffee beans in a cup, and then pours hot water. Saya was her name. The name of the girl Arita mentioned before. According to Arita, that girl's family has taken in Arita, who always lived in an abandoned house. She's happy he got a better place to live. However, a ghoul living in the house of two humans. Let's see if Arita doesn't bite their butts. Tuka shakes her head and kicks those annoying thoughts away. She has no right to feel this way. Arita can spend time with whoever he wants. But it still bothers her. She returns to her second-floor room and drops onto the bed before taking a sip of her bitter coffee. It doesn't taste as good as the coffee they make in the nearby cafe. What was it called again? She sighs and returns to her previous spiral. Idiot, at least he should have let me know. At that moment, she furrows her brows, noticing something strange. Normally on Sunday mornings, she can hear children playing outside, cars passing in the distance, and people talking animatedly. However, for the past few minutes, no sound was entering through her window apart from birdsong. Tuka stands up slowly while sharpening her senses. This type of situation reminds her of when earthquake drills occurred at the school she attended, when everyone had to evacuate the area quickly. This is wrong. The neighbors have been evacuated and the area has been closed off. She hasn't been notified, nor has she been integrated among the groups of those who've been evacuated. That means... She walks toward the window carefully and looks outside, where the streets are empty and the neighborhood houses are closed. She opens her eyes wide. Men dressed in white suits positioned at various points around her house. All of them were armed with briefcases that undoubtedly contain quinquas. They've found her. Realizing that point, Tuka's heart beats faster while she backs away from the window. The CCG has completely surrounded the area. Her house's roof explodes inward as several investigators enter. One of them, a man in his 20s with scars on his face, points at her. Indeed, it's a female ghoul. Estimated threat level, B rank. Another investigator who happens to be younger than the previous one, has an arrogant expression while spitting. How pathetic. A ghoul girl living alone. Probably her monster parents are already dead, as all ghouls should be. His face distorts into a cruel expression. Let's do society a favor and eliminate this trash too. Anger instantly boils in Tuka's chest. These bastards. They're the ones who took away her family. What right do they have to speak? Without hesitating for a second, she enters combat state. Her back opens and her cocoon sprouts violently, taking the form of crimson and shining wings that unfold on both sides of her. Instead of feathers, they look like wings made of fire mixed with blood. Not attacking first in this case, where she's cornered, would be stupid. She launches forward with shocking speed, thanks to her Akaka cocoon type. The next moment, she appears in front of the arrogant investigator. Her wings move twice, leaving crimson marks in the air. Accompanied by a whistle, her attack deeply cuts the man's arm, who managed to move his head from the direction of the wings. A cut arm, although not as dangerous as a cut neck, at the end of the day is still extremely painful. While the moon retreats with staggering steps, Tuka doesn't stop. She spins quickly and fires a barrage of crystallized projectiles from her wings toward the other three investigators. They raise their briefcases and swirling, their quinquas materialize before them in different forms, helping them block the projectiles. But they're forced to retreat several steps. She takes advantage of that moment to jump backward to create distance while assessing the situation. There are 4 investigators in total inside the house. From what she saw, there are dozens of other investigators outside. But those outside seem to be weaker investigators. So if she manages to get out of here, escaping would be easy. However, those before her are coordinated and don't seem especially weak. I have to break their formation quickly. She's been training since she went out with Arida that night to kill a parasitized ghoul. Therefore, she now knows how to control her cocoon better than before. She knows how to use her speed as an advantage, as well as knowing how to aim at vital points. Most important is not wasting energy on useless attacks. But these irritating guys aren't simple humans, since they're a well-trained team with quinqua use. They could cover each other's weaknesses. Tuka attacks again using her speed to strike from angles that are unexpected for the investigators. The air becomes hot around Tuka, while her short hair whips violently, revealing 2 eyes with black sclera and bright red iris. She manages to wound 2 more using the walls and ceiling to propel herself toward them. On the agent's shoulders and legs are several bleeding wounds. Despite trying not to make a useless effort, that's still just her intention. In a battle, no matter a good intention without the strength to back up that effort, it will be nothing more than fantasy. The strength difference between her and the agents isn't so overwhelming. Soon, the CCG starts adapting quickly to her combat style. They start blocking the points where she thinks of propelling herself on the walls, anticipate her attack movements, and use teamwork to corner her. One blocks while another attacks from her blind spot. Tuka slightly pulls her head backward, and a quinqua in the form of a robust spear passes grazing her nose. In that position, she immediately counterattacks with a wave of crystallized projectiles. The man who attacked her was violently struck and collapses on the floor, with blood being spit from the holes caused by the projectiles. What? A ghoul girl being so powerful. Are you sure she's AB rank? The man shows no emotion and say. She's AB rank, no doubt. You bastards are very weak. The combat continues becoming more intense. Tuka starts receiving hits despite being able to dodge those same attacks before. Now several wounds are visible on her skin accumulating on her arms, legs, torso and cheeks while her breathing becomes heavier. Damn it. This isn't working. Time isn't on her side. Her stamina is already slowly diminishing. Her Akaku is good for quick and ranged attacks, but has low resistance and suffers from rapid stamina degradation. The agent with scars on his face, who has maintained a defensive position, shouts. She's starting to tire. Focus on the target. Don't give her a second to breathe. Attack together. Understood. The two remaining investigators prepare their quinquas while the sunlight entering through the roof spills over the weapons, giving them a sinister appearance. Tuka also prepares her kagun, whose glow has lost much of its intensity. She knows this is the last offensive she can launch with the strength she has left without completely exhausting herself, to be able to escape. If she fails, she'll die. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.